Good evening and welcome. My name is Taylor Kingman, President of the Board of Trustees for San Angelo ISD. I would like to welcome all of you who are present at tonight's regular board meeting, as well as those who will be watching the recording online or on our public access channel. Today is January 20th. All items on the agenda have been posted as required by state law, and most items have been discussed in our earlier pre-agenda board workshop. As a board, our work includes setting goals, hearing reports from our superintendent, approving budgets, contracts, and personnel items, and making policy decisions for the district. Please keep in mind that this is a meeting of the board held in public, not a meeting of the public. These proceedings are recorded and will become part of the district's permanent record. To help us maintain a clear recording, please refrain from speaking while others have the floor, and please silence your cell phones. Thank you again for being here and for your support of SAISD. We do have a quorum, and we will begin with our first item on the agenda, which is our invocation. And Jamie Rouse, Associate Pastor at Calvary Baptist Church, is going to help us with that.
Thank you. Would you bow your heads in prayer? Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to you that we have a God who answers prayers, who tells us to call on you in prayer. And we glorify your name today as our true God and Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We pray for these meetings tonight, Lord, for the board to have great wisdom, to know your direction as they care about each and every student and every employee of the district. Lord, there's a great responsibility here, and I just pray that you would just anoint them with the wisdom and the knowledge as they've talked and consulted with others, Lord, that they would know what is best for the children of San Angelo ISD. Lord, for these children, we're grateful to you for them because you tell us that children are a blessing from you. And we thank you for each child, each one that is present tonight. We thank you for them and their successes. And I know this board celebrates those successes. And we pray that you'd give them even more success. But Lord, even those that are the marginal in our district, we pray for them tonight. We pray that you would meet their needs, Lord, that their teachers, their aides, those that work with them every day would see needs and be able to reach out and help them meet those needs. Lord, for each employee, for the teachers, for the custodian staff, for the maintenance and technology, and all of those who bear the backbone of this district, Lord, we pray for them. We pray that you remind them every day that they have a gift from you to work with these kids. And we just pray that you would just honor their work and that they would honor you in their work. So Lord, again tonight, we pray that you would bless this meeting, that you would be glorified in each and every decision. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you. Now we have some fifth graders from McGill Elementary. We have King White, Kanan Morales, and Brindley Porras. And they're going to come up and help us with our pledge of allegiance to the United States and Texas. And if everyone would stand, I'd appreciate it. All right. All right, next we're going to move forward with our recognitions, and Shannon Schwartz is going to help us as we get on with that.
Good evening. We have a few recognitions tonight, and we're going to first start out with a really, really special one. I'm going to invite Miss Kathy Keene from Congressman Pfluger's office here, and we are going to recognize Akash Vakoti for something extremely special. So, Miss Keene.
Good evening, school board and Dr. Moran. I want to thank you so much for allowing us to make this recognition here publicly. I want to give you a little bit of background. The Congressional App Challenge is an annual event that's hosted by the House of Representatives, and it's for middle school and high school students with the goal of encouraging them to learn code and inspire them with the goal of inspiring them to pursue careers in computer science. This year was a record-breaking year for the App Challenge. We had 13,830 students across the United States, created 4,650 applications across 394 congressional districts. That's 90% of the districts held this App Challenge. So tonight, we're pleased to recognize Akash Vakoti, a student here at Central High School, as a Texas District 11's App Challenge finalist. Akash's app was What's on My Ballot, and it was inspired by interviews that he conducted in May of 2025 with all of San Angelo's mayoral and city council candidates that were actively running for office. He then published a simple voter guide to easily explain the viewpoints of each candidate. And What's on My Ballot received a lot of media attention as he developed that and helped contribute to near doubling the voter turnout here in San Angelo, which is tremendous. So on behalf of Congressman Pfluger, I'd like to present Akash with a congressional recognition and ask you to help me congratulate him.
Do you want your paper?
I'll just let you roll through, Shannon.
Thank you. That sounds good. Tonight, we have some members of the San Angelo Schools Foundation, so I'm going to go ahead and invite y'all to come up and stand in the middle with Dr. Moran. Okay. Tonight, we're proud to recognize the San Angelo Schools Foundation for its continued partnership and support of San Angelo ISD. Established in 1989, the Schools Foundation continues to strengthen academic opportunities for our students by championing educator-driven ideas and investing in the future of our classrooms. The dedicated members of the foundation, many of whom are here with us tonight, work closely with our district and our educators to help students reach their individual hopes and dreams. They do this by supporting and inspiring innovation and excellence in teaching and learning across San Angelo ISD. Since its founding, the San Angelo Schools Foundation has invested more than $1.2 million directly into our classrooms and students. To date, that support includes over $1 million in grants to teachers, nearly $200,000 in scholarships, and more than $24,000 through the Bright Ideas Initiative for a combined impact of $1,226,160 supporting innovation and opportunity across our district. This year alone, the foundation awarded $92,014 in grants to teachers, supporting 72 educators, 8 all-campus projects, and reaching 20 campuses district-wide. Later this spring, the foundation will award up to $15,000 through this year's Bright Ideas Initiative. So if we have any staff members who haven't applied, you should think about it. Together, these investments help turn creative ideas into meaningful learning experiences and ensure our students benefit from engaging, innovative instruction. Tonight, we are joined by several members of the school's foundation board, including Executive Director Noreen Carpenter, President Ashley Honey, President-elect Jean Ann Owens, Treasurer Stacy Elkins, Crispin Graves, and Renee Orr. Please join me in thanking the San Angelo Schools Foundation for its incredible support of our students, staff, and our district. It's not my recognition this time, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gomez.
I'm going to defer this one to Dr. Gomez. She's going to do recognition of teachers with the National Board Certification.
Thank you, Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board. This brings me great pleasure. If you're a recipient, you can breathe. I'm not going to make you stand up here the whole time I talk, okay? Okay. Teachers love to brag on students, but they don't always like to be on the receiving end, but this is well-deserved. This is the part of the job that brings me the greatest joy. So quite excited for this recognition for some of our teachers throughout the district, but for the board and for those here in person and those watching, I want everyone to understand why this is so special. This ranks among the best of the best, the highest level of accreditation in the teaching industry. National Board Certification is a voluntary, please note that. Teachers' plates are always overflowing, so these staff members chose to seek this professional growth. So it's a voluntary advanced professional credential for pre-K through 12 educators that recognizes accomplished teaching through a rigorous, performance-based, peer-reviewed assessment. The certification is issued by the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards and is widely regarded as the highest professional certification available to classroom teachers in the United States. So I want to say that again, not the state, nationwide. That's why this is a really big deal. Now you do have to come stand up here. Also at this time, Ms. Flippin, if you will wait here, I'm going to call you individually, Ms. Fentress, if y'all will come back just really quick. Ms. Flippin, yeah, this is a little bit of the part where you have to smile and do those things. While we're getting ready, I also have called up Miss Mary Beth Flippin. Miss Flippin, I'm proud to say as well, is a current SAISD employee who is serving as our teacher retention specialist. We know that recruiting is one part of equipping your organization with the best staff, but the key is retention, and so we're blessed to have Ms. Flippin in this role. She currently works with our new to profession teachers out in the field, but Ms. Flippin, she had to go away for a little bit. Don't worry, she found her way home. So she personally coached and worked with several of these teachers in her former role, and so it's just very fitting that she gets to see them come across that finish line. So, before I call you up, let me give a little more background. National Board Certification is valid for 5 years for teachers certified in 2017 or later, with renewal available through the maintenance of certification process. So again, it goes back to showing the level of professionalism that these educators hold. It's not just something you get and you check it off your box. You have to continue the learning process. That's why it's the best of the best. By supporting teachers in pursuing National Board Certification, districts can strengthen instructional excellence, attract and retain high-quality educators, and leverage teacher incentive allotment funding to reinvest in teacher compensation and campus improvement. All of these teachers automatically will receive compensation, a part of the state's teacher incentive allotment. I'm also proud to say that we have a board of trustees that recognize the magic really happens in classrooms. So on top of the state's allocation from teacher incentive allot, you all have approved an additional stipend that they will get for serving in San Angelo ISD. You don't get that stipend if you serve somewhere else. Just want to remind you of that, a little levity. So first up, please welcome and help me congratulate Mia Arredondo from Fort Concho. Next up, please help me in congratulating Brenda Barner. Next, a big congratulations to Jenny Black. Next, a round of applause and congratulations to Lucy Fentress. And last, but certainly not least, you know, I am a former first grade teacher and we do things in alphabetical order. So please congratulate Macy Smithson. Class picture. Please join me in another round of applause for these outstanding educators. Congratulations. Once you finish your pictures, if you'll please come around the circle, the board members would very much like to shake your hands and congratulate each of you.
All right, Shannon, you're back up.
It's me again. All right. So each January, we take time to honor the dedicated individuals who volunteer their time and talents to serve their communities as school board members. Trustees play a vital role in overseeing the operation of local public schools and ensuring students receive a high-quality public education. School Board Recognition Month gives us a chance to pause and say thank you, to recognize the time, care, and thoughtful leadership our trustees bring to our district and to our students. This year's School Board Recognition Month theme is Our Future is Public. As trustees volunteer their time and expertise to guide the direction of school districts, they're investing not only in today's students, but in the future workforce, our community, and the Texas economy. We're grateful for the leadership and service of our San Angelo ISD Board Trustees, President Dr. Taylor Kingman, Vice President Amy Mazzell Flint, Secretary Gerard Gallegos, Treasurer Bill Dindal, our newest board member, Ms. Carla Cardenas, Dr. Kyle Mills, and Ms. Pam Duncan. Tonight, we're also joined by some very special students. Culinary arts and floral design students from both Central High School and Lakeview High School have created beautiful floral arrangements and some sweet treats to present to our trustees as a small token of appreciation for your service. On behalf of our students, staff, and families, thank you to our board for your dedication, your leadership, and your commitment to public education. And let's just take a moment for how beautiful these arrangements are. They're gorgeous.
Thank you. And while they do that, I'd like to just publicly say thanks to the board for the input, for the dedication, hours of reading through board book documents prior to meetings, questioning and guiding this district over time. Thank you all for the work you're doing. Was this all Lakeview? And I believe these flowers and treats came from Lakeview High School. So thank you, Lakeview.
All right. Next on our agenda is public comments. We do have individuals signed up to speak this evening. For those speaking tonight, please remember to follow the guidelines you received when you signed in and that were displayed on the screen before the meeting began. Our first speaker is Virgil Passetti, and his topic is leadership, finances, and transparency.
Hello, my name is Virgil Passetti, concerned father. I know today one of the agenda items is closing down 2 additional schools. And it's because we don't have any money, and we got to have the savings. And, we closed those other 2 schools and we saved about $1.5 million, but it cost us $20 million to save 1.5. So that gives you a ROI of 7% or a net payback of 13 years. So we're not actually going to book any of those savings for 13 years. There's not a company in the world would take on a capital project that big with a 7% return. So quit telling the public that you're doing this great deed for us, that you're such a fiduciary with our money. You spent $20 million to save 1.5, and in the process, you traumatized all those kids. And now you want to do the same thing again because we need the money. We have a communication department right there, 2 people, $500,000. We got $1.1 million in staff development, yet we're being investigated by the TA for not developing our staff and having people that aren't supposed to be teaching our special ed kids. We got $4.5 million for counseling. Is that directly going to impact the students? No. It might indirectly, but there's money out there. The other thing, scientific method. You only change one variable at a time so that you can have a clear and concise, I can't even think of the word, to establish a clear and concise cause and effect. You're changing too many variables. You want to close more schools. You want to build here. The Altaloma to Fannin was a disaster. And now you want to do it to 2 more schools. And you want to do it to Reagan and Bowie. And then third on the list is Santa Rita. Santa Rita is going to be 100 years old this year. It only has 140 students that actually belong there. All the rest are transferred in because that's your little country club. So you're going to displace 400 kids at these other schools at the behest of your special 140, El Presidente. Because they're more important to you than those other 400 because they're the elite. So before you go and shut down those other schools, you need to look deep because you can't protect Santa Rita at the disbenefit of these other kids. And it's going to come out. So if y'all vote to do that, all that's coming out and everybody's going to truly finally see who y'all are.
Thank you, Mr. Passetti. Next, we have Miss Emily Sharp, and she's talking on closing schools.
Good evening. My name is Emily Sharp. I'm a former Altaloma parent and a current Fannin parent. As this board considers closing additional schools, I'm here because the closure of Altaloma and the transfer of students to Fannin was mishandled, and the impact of those decisions continues to affect our children. When Altaloma closed, parents were repeatedly promised that Fannin would be a better environment. That promise has not been kept. The transition was chaotic and unacceptable. At open house, classrooms were unfinished, teachers met families in the cafeteria, and students were expected to attend school the next day without time to learn the campus or the routine. Children who have already lost their school were giving no transitional support. Condition at Fannin remains problematic. Traffic is unsafe, and the cafeteria is overcrowded and rushed, leaving students with barely enough time to eat. Yes, I know, Phase 2 construction should be done in 2027, yet students were moved before facilities were ready. That planning failure should not have fallen on our children. Across the district, McGill received what it needed with more improvements coming. Fannin got a new parking lot, a hallway, and please don't forget the new basketball court. Crockett is estimated to be completed in August 2026, and Bowie hasn't even closed yet. This just goes to show that the Northside schools continue to be deprioritized. Communication from this board is unacceptable. I've emailed every board member multiple times about serious issues, including heating and air conditioner failures that lasted nearly half the school year last year. Most of the emails went unanswered, besides Dr. Mills, thank you for that. Parents should not have to rely on social media to be heard when the welfare is at stake. Most concerning is a serious safety incident involving my daughter. She was physically shocked and sparks showered her back by a portable air conditioner when it was plugged into the outlet, and the outlet caught on fire. This is not minor, it was a clear safety failure. To this day, I have received no response from the board or admin. Before closing any schools, this board must take responsibility. Do not move students into incomplete campuses. Do not promise improvements when they are not ready. Do not promise double the staff when we can't even find a steady principal. And our classrooms are filled with 25 kids when we were promised 4 teachers per grade. We don't have 4 teachers per grade at Fannin. Our children deserve safe, prepared learning environments. Parents deserve transparency, accountability, and action.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. Next, we have Ms. Amy Strickland.
Hi, my name is Amy Strickland, and I am a concerned parent, and I want to address the families also, who I'm sure they're also concerned about the closing of Bowie Elementary. My family and I moved here from El Paso 3 years ago, and my son started his educational journey in El Paso. When we moved here to Bowie, we moved here, my son was just starting his educational journey in El Paso, and like any parent, I worried about how such big change would affect him academically, socially, and emotionally. Starting over in a new city and a new school is not easy for a child. What I can tell you today is that enrolling my son in Bowie Elementary was the best decision that I have made. Bowie is since attending Bowie, I have seen significant improvement in my son's academic performance. His grades have improved, and most importantly, he is now reading at beyond grade level. That did not happen by accident. It happened because of the support, the structure, and the dedication of the teacher and staff at this school. Bowie is more than just a building. It's a community. The teachers know their students, they recognize their strengths, notice when they struggle, and step in to help. That kind of individualized attention makes a real difference, especially for the children who may fall in behind or who are adjusting to major life changes. Closing Bowie would not just disrupt schedules, it would disrupt progress. It would uproot children who are finally thriving. For students like my son, consistency matters. Stability matters. Taking away risks, undoing years of hard work, not only from the students, but from the educators who have invested so much time in their success. I understand that difficult decisions must be made, and I respect the responsibility of this board. The responsibility this board carries, but I urge you to consider the long-term impact on our children. Numbers and budgets do not tell the full story. Growth, confidence, and academic improvement cannot always be measured on a spreadsheet, but they are real and they matter. but we gave my son the opportunity to succeed. Please do not take that opportunity away from him and so many other students who depend on this school. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to the voices of parents who only want what's best for their children.
Thank you, Ms. Strickland. All right, next we're going to move forward with conducting our Finance and Audit Committee workshop. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dindal to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Kingman. Our financial reports for December begin on page 9 with the Finance and Audit report. Page 13 shows right now the committed fund balance at $4.9 million, of which $4 million are designated to capital projects were identified earlier in the year. Currently, we show the unassigned fund balance resting at $50.5 million. I'm going to move to page 16, a revenues expenditures report for December. We're in the 4th month of our budget cycle, so we should be at about 33% of our total budget for expenditures and revenues. Our revenues currently stand at 34.6%, and our expenditures are at 33.5%, so we're right in line with the budget cycle at this point. Page 17 through 35 is our check register for December. We received that in its entirety in a report earlier this month. I don't know if anybody's had any questions about any of those checks. If not, we can move forward to page 36 through 40, which is our December monthly investment report. Currently, interest earned for this December was $1,608,945.38. And currently, we have approximately $400 million invested, basically due to our bond funds that are continuing to earn interest as we were waiting for them to be distributed to our bond projects. If there are no questions about our investment report, we can move to the November tax report. At this point, our taxes collected stand at 8.67%, which is not unusual at all. The bulk of those funds will come in December and January as people begin to pay their 2025 property taxes. There's no question about that report. We can move to our December PO report. Several items attached, multiple items. The most significant PO listed is for the E3 bond project for a significant amount of HVAC renovation and coordination. If there are no questions about any of those purchases, that would conclude this report.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. We're going to move forward with some information items. Next, we're going to do our 24-25 audit report presentation.
Dr. Keeman, Dr. Moran, Board of Trustees, each year the district engages an independent certified public accountant to audit its financial reports. The audit report must be presented to the Texas Education Agency. The firm of Eide Bailey was engaged to perform the audit for fiscal year 2025. We have with us this evening Jeremy Stevens, CPA and partner, Eide Bailey. And as he makes his way up, I'd like to make a quick recognition and a shout out to Mr. Jaime Guerrero, our comptroller, who spends the bulk of time of any of our employees in the audit. It takes a team, but he's at the front of that with the audit, making sure everything is correct for the district, and recently received his certified public accountant. So we're very proud for Mr. Guerrero.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Jeremy Stevens with Eide Bailey. Our firm has completed the audit of the financial statements of the district. As of and for the year ended August 31st, 2025, I left a copy of those bound financial statements each of your seats. Additionally, I have a brief presentation to kind of cover some of the financial highlights. Before I get into it, though, I do want to say audit went well this year. Did not have any adjusting journal entries that were identified as a result of audit procedures. So, like I said, good clean audit year. So that being said, I'll get into the bound copy, starting with our audit report, which starts on page number 12. I've summarized kind of the main points up on the slide. First of all, starts at the top of page number 12 with our opinion, which states that, in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district. So this is what's known as an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements. It then goes on to describe our basis for our opinion, which is that we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and that we believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. It then goes on to describe management's responsibility for the financial statements, which management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and for the design and implementation of internal controls. And then lastly, on page number 13, it states our responsibility for the audit of the financial statements, which our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and to express an opinion as to whether these financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. There's some additional narrative regarding our approach to internal controls, which is we gain an understanding of the district's internal controls, to design our audit procedures. However, we do not test them to an extent that allows us to express an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. So we're not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. Now moving on to some of the basic financial statements themselves, starting on page number 25 with the statement of net position. This particular statement provides a snapshot of all assets and liabilities of the district as of August 31st, 2025. I've got a very, very summarized version of that statement on the slide there with a comparative column for 2024. You'll see at the end of the current fiscal year, total assets and deferred outflows of resources, we're about $706 million this year. Compared to last year, it's about $315 million. So total assets and deferred outflows increased about $390 million year over year. Primarily, that's in the restricted assets and those long-term investment categories. The district did issue bonds in the 2025 fiscal year. Those bonds generated some of those bond proceeds, which were then held as restricted assets or investments until they're spent down on future years on those construction projects. So that's what drove up those total assets and deferred outflows of resources. Likewise, on liabilities and deferred inflows of resources, those also increased significantly. You'll see up to about $586 million in the current fiscal year from about $195 million in the previous fiscal year. Again, that's largely driven by that 2025 bond issuance. Basically grossed up the balance sheet. Got the assets up there, and then the corresponding liability was recorded as well. If you added up your assets less your net, your total liabilities, you get a total net position at year end about $120 million this fiscal year. Really comparable to last fiscal year is about $120.4 million in the previous fiscal year. Second statement that I'll touch on is the balance sheet of governmental funds, which is on page number 29. Again, this statement provides a snapshot of assets and liabilities of the district. However, it's presented on what's known as the modified accrual basis of accounting. So this particular statement, its focus is on current assets and current liabilities. So it does not include any sort of long-term assets, such as your capital assets, fixed assets, or anything of that nature. Additionally, there are no long-term liabilities, so it does not include a liability for your bonds payable or for your net pension or net other post-employment benefit liabilities. Under this basis of accounting, again, you'll see total assets did have a significant increase up to about $483 million this year. Again, largely in that restricted assets and long-term investment category. Again, it's kind of quirky with governmental accounting. When you issue those bonds, you get the asset, and that gets recorded as an asset, but then it gets recorded as revenue on your income statement until you spend it down in future years. So that's why your assets are up, again, from that 2025 bond issuance. As far as liabilities and deferred inflows of resources, you'll see about $20 million in the current fiscal year, about $26.5 million in the previous fiscal year. So pretty comparable. Did decrease a little bit year over year, but overall pretty comparable. If you add it up, you get your fund balance at year end about $463 million in the current fiscal year, compared to about $75 million in the previous fiscal year. This next slide I have on here to kind of show the differences in those categories of fund balance year over year. And this is total fund balance. I'll have a slide in a second just to talk about general fund balance. As far as total fund balance, again, you'll see that total increase up to about $463 million this year. If you look at the categories, again, it's largely in that restricted category. Those are assets and fund balance that is restricted for those future construction projects. That's why that has increased so much. Unassigned fund balance, about $49 million in the current fiscal year, so it did decrease from about $51.5 million in the previous fiscal year. Again, as far as the general fund, again, you'll see primarily that reduction in the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, down to, like I said, that $49 million in unassigned in the at August 31st, 2025. It was about $51.5 million in 2024. One metric you can use to kind of gauge the health of that is to compare it to your average monthly expenditures in the general fund. TEA recommends to keep it at least about 3 times your average monthly general fund expenditures in that unassigned fund balance category. Based on the fiscal year 2025 expenditures, that $49 million, it represents about 4.2 times your average monthly general fund expenditures. So you are a little bit ahead of what TEA recommends to maintain as that minimum reserve. And lastly, I'll touch on statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund balance. It's the income statement of the district on page number 31. Again, this slide summarizes revenue sources of the district. You'll see total revenues and other financing sources this year about $562 million compared to about $175 million in the previous fiscal year. Again, as I mentioned, those bond proceeds, when that bond is issued, is recognized as basically revenue in the current fiscal year. So we see that in the other financing sources. That's where that $402 million came in. If you look at your total regular operating revenues, down to about $160 million this year from about $174 million in the previous fiscal year. Local revenues, that's primarily property taxes, about $64 million this year, very comparable to last year, about $64 million. State revenues, pretty comparable, about $77 million each year. And then those federal program revenues did decrease quite a bit year over year. ESSER funds expired in the previous fiscal year. Those were not renewed by the federal government, so that's why those federal revenues decreased year over year. And then lastly, as far as expenses of the district, about $173 million in the current fiscal year is about $184 million in the 24 fiscal year. So total expenses did decrease about $11 million year over year. If you look at the individual categories, that's primarily in the capital outlay, down to about $8 million this fiscal year from about $17 million in the previous fiscal year. Again, that's kind of a timing of when those capital expenditures and those capital projects happen. 2025 was lower than 2024. I definitely suspect 2026 will be much larger. But anyways, that was driving the kind of the reduction in those overall expenditures year over year. And then there are 2 other reports that we're issuing, which are back in the back of the bound copy. First is on page number 127. It's our report on internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance. Again, this reiterates that we're not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. However, if we did report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting or any instances of noncompliance, it's the report that we'd communicate those to you in. Again, there were no such items identified. And then lastly is our report on compliance required by the uniform guidance, which is on page number 129. District does receive federal funding. Each year the federal government publishes guidance to auditors to how to perform a compliance audit on those federal funds. This year the federal programs that we tested were the Special Education Cluster, Title IV Part A, and Stronger Connections Grant. The opinion for those is found on page number 129. States in our opinion the district complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements of those major federal programs. We are reporting a significant deficiency in internal controls over compliance, specifically related to the Stronger Connections Grant. That particular program does require the district to communicate with private schools within the boundaries of the district and offer participation in that grant program with those private schools. The district did that communication with private schools for the Title IV program and for other federal programs which require that communication, but the Stronger Connections Grant was overlooked and not communicated with. So that was, it's kind of with federal government, especially with compliance, it's you did it or you did not do it. So that communication, that participation was not offered, so we're reporting it to you. That program, it does extend through the end of September 2026. So you still have some room in that grant to work it out with TEA and figure out if there's a way to kind of rectify that and correct that omission. But like I said, for the 2025 fiscal year, we are reporting it as a deficiency in internal controls over that compliance requirement. And that was everything that I have. Does anybody have any questions for me while I'm here?
Any questions for Bailey? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next, we're going to have Carl Danheim come up and give us a bond construction update. Or maybe we're going to have KFW come up and give us a bond construction update.
Hello. Very good. Okay. Oh, you want to go back? Yep. There you go. Good evening, Dr. Moran, Dr. Brandon, and school board. Thank you guys for having us. We're here to give you guys an update on Fannin Elementary. Apologize for those lines. Goodness, that's not how it looked on our computer. So please bear with me. Not every screen is going to look like that. This slide here is the bird's eye view of Fannin Elementary as it exists today. On to the left of your screen, you'll see the original structure that was built in 1966. It houses the administration area, cafeteria, and the nurse's office. And then adjacent to that, also part of the 1966 structure, is your special programs, the library, and 8 classrooms. That's 4 kindergarten and 4 first grade classrooms. Moving further to the right or north is a 1997 addition with 10 classrooms, and then further on is this most recent addition of 8 classrooms that was completed, I believe, in 2024. A little bit more, so these large blue lines, you can't really read what they are, but on going down Edmond Boulevard, which is the one on the right-hand side, is a 10-inch water main, and then on the opposite side, running down Wilson Street, to the left of the street is an 8-inch water main. And then another thing to note is that teal line that sort of runs diagonally across the site is a large storm sewer drain. And as part of that storm sewer drain is a 20-foot easement. So that's something that we need to be cognizant of as we move forward, and that's part of sort of something that we've kind of come across as we have been working on these designs. Another thing to note is that you'll see the dash lines that are the contour lines as we go through. Keep those in mind, as that helps you understand each one of those contours depicts a foot of elevation change. So there's all those contour lines shows a lot of elevation change on that site, particularly as you go from the building to the east towards Louise Drive. This slide was done prior to our involvement in this sketch and massing model was done prior to our involvement in the project. I think it was part of the bond development packet, and it shows sort of the preliminary program, which was a cafeteria, the new cafeteria over there by the gym on the west side of the campus, back by the alley, and then a new admin building with a library, and then new parking and pull through with drop-off in that area. And then the admin and library and cafeteria space that's in the original building would then have been migrated over, leaving the 8 classrooms and special programs in that existing area. So as we began to investigate the site, do a little bit of research, we kind of came across a few issues that kind of made us scratch our head. And one is the topography that I mentioned before. So at the intersection or there at the I guess lower on the lower left hand part of that screen of Louise and Wilson Drive, that corner is 20 feet in difference in elevation from the finished floor of the school. So it's 20 feet below. So we're looking at a pretty significant elevation change. So that parking lot, in this graphic, it looks nice and flat, but really what we'd be looking at is a series of retaining walls, ramps, drainage culverts, and stairwells that would kind of really complicate the project and add a fair amount of cost. Another issue that we ran across is that our understanding was that part of a future phase for after this were to be completed at a future date would be to replace that 1966 structure with a classroom building, a new classroom building. However, we're kind of eating up all the swing space. You don't really have anywhere to put the eight first grade and kindergarten classrooms as you once you start construction of that area. So because the area where you see the portables is actually going to be taken up by the new cafeteria, and that's kind of the last remaining flat part of this site where you could place a portable. So we were really kind of scratching our head on how best to work that. So our proposal, what we think is a good direction, is to, rather than the cafeteria will stay in that or the same location back there by the gym and the alley, but rather than a new administration building with the library, we're proposing a new 10 classroom building there on the eastern side of the campus, and then as part of this current scope, and then at a later date, as part of a secondary scope, would be the renovation rather than the replacing that original structure with a new building. It would be renovating that existing structure with the to house the current the admin, the library, special programs, nurses, and the like. What you'll also see here is that we're getting rid of that very large and expensive pull-through parking lot and drive. So that's money that's being now portaled directly into student learning spaces by adding in that 10 classroom building. So before we look too much in at where we are with the 10 classroom building and the cafeteria, Kai is going to talk a little bit about sort of what we saw in that original structure that kind of really helped spark our imagination and helped us kind of think about moving in this direction.
So good evening, Dr. Morans, Dr. Kingman, and board members. Yes, I'm Kai Franke with KFW Architects. And Brooks and I made several visits to the site and visited with the principal and Dr. Brandon and Carl. And as we went into the building and met there and had meetings, you know, this building has some interest to it. It has an interesting shape and a hexagon shape. We realized that some of those classrooms in the pie shape don't work the best for regular, typical instructional space. However, the building itself, we recognize that, you know, it seemed fairly sound, and it's a lot of volume of space. It's over 23,000 square feet. So as Brooks was discussing earlier about trying to figure out what's best for the campus, look at the scope and the programming, and figure out how best to solve that. His first slide with those bold lines on it were illustrating the utility lines and where they're located around the building. And so as we did our study and explored, does the cafeteria go on this side? And then does it have access to the front admin area? If the admin goes on that east side and we build that large parking lot, we cannot exceed 10% of grade and have it as a fire lane. And so there's just a lot of moving parts there. So we kind of went back to this train of thought of, let's look at that building a little bit closer and see if it has merit. And instead of taking it down and building a new classroom building in a phase 2 or further down the road for the district, could it be repurposed? Could it be salvaged and repurposed? And so we did another visit there and took the structural engineer and MEP engineer to the building. We walked the building, explored some of the structural integrity of the building. It really has very good bones, and it has a lot of square footage. The only thing we saw was on the outside there was some graffiti in years past that had, I think someone had taken a sandblaster to it and, you know, tried to remove that graffiti. that building has an accent brick in it that is very soft, and so that sandblasting delaminated some of the brick. But it's only in those areas where they did this sandblasting. They also put a coating on it that tried to probably prevent future graffiti. And so we had one of the masons go and clean an area to see if it could be cleaned off, and it could. So we thought, there's a lot of value if that was considered to be a phase 2 down the road, and we built that classroom building now on the east. That would solve that problem. You wouldn't have that worry about where to stage some portables for swing space, because the school could stay in full operation during construction of a classroom building on the east, simplifying some things, and then also the cafeteria on the west because of the way the utility connections are. So we kind of came to that conclusion and talked with Dr. Brandon and Dr. Moran's about that, as well as Carl, and visited. We did this just kind of a quick layout to see how could that space be repurposed and reused. And so it really works very well for just a first cursory in meeting the scope criteria that is needed at the school. So the admin would stay up at the front area where the porte cochere is, and that parking lot could all stay. It would have really an admin suite, which would have a nice conference room, record storage, principal and vice principal. To the far east, it would have a nurses area. And then the library would move from the core area potentially. In this illustration, it may not end up this way, but this was just to show you how the space could be used. Library might move to the east. That center, the center core area, pardon me?
And gain square footage.
Yeah, and gain square footage. The core area might be a teacher training space or a large conference room for all the staff to be able to gather. And then that furthest west area could be special programming. So that's how that building could potentially be repurposed and have a nice flow. The good part would be we could build the build the classroom building and cafeteria buildings, and then when the district was ready, we could come in and really see exactly what the needs are and potentially repurpose this building. The positive thing is we didn't take down a good building. Also, that site is so challenging. The grades are just tremendous. And to try to put portables on that campus is very difficult after we build that cafeteria. So we really kind of felt like this was maybe using the dollars wisely and putting them back into the students and programming. Did I leave anything out?
I mean, good. So just walk through the classroom and cafeteria. This is very, very, very cursory, very quick. This is a 10 classroom building with a double-loaded corridor, pretty standard. We're showing group restrooms for older students, and then we do have single-use restrooms attached to classrooms as well, which allows, and we would finalize the final location and the quantity of what we needed as we talked further with the administration and the staff to really kind of hone in on what best serves the campus and gives them the best flexibility moving forward. Here's the cafeteria. This is seating for between 350 and 400 people, probably closer to 400 students. We have a large stage as well as group restrooms for boys and girls. And then the serving area and the kitchen and food prep areas were largely following the district model, the standard that's been set at both McGill and Crockett. So that is largely unchanged from those cafeterias, since we know that works well for the food service staff in those locations. So we just keep that, not trying to reinvent that wheel.
Okay, so I wanted to just kind of go over just briefly. We did a little cursory cost analysis to kind of see where we were at if we picked this direction and to see if we were staying within the budget that was allocated. And so the phase one is that upper portion of the sheet, which includes the 10 classroom building, the cafeteria building. We would propose to fire sprinkle the existing middle classroom building, and that would include some lights and AC or acoustical grid ceiling, and also sprinkle that newest north building, but just sprinkle it, not change out ceilings or lights. And then since the site is so challenging, we have some budgetary dollars in there for the site utilities as well as that development. So contingencies on these type of projects, we need to ensure that they're there, and I broke those out in 3 different brackets. So all in all, with the soft cost, we're at $17,146. Now that's very flexible, but wanted to try to give a snapshot of where we were at on at least this phase one. If you were to proceed with phase two down the road, I did an analysis of that, and with soft cost and things in that, it's about 11 million. But I think all in all, it is something to really consider, that process or that approach. So I realized those together would be exceeding the budget. So we're not really saying that phase two is part of this project, but if this was a good direction, then I think all in all, it would be using the campus very wisely, and it would be putting more of the dollars instead of into parking and more challenges of the site and putting them more to the students and into the ability to program the spaces. If there's any questions?
Any questions for Brooks or Kai?
I just had a question, like, I guess how important is that parking lot for, I mean, I know some parents have discussed like traffic patterns and flow with pickups and stuff. Is that, removing that, is that going to put a big hindrance in the school?
So there are currently two student drop-offs, and there are City of San Angelo standards for parking are is 1.5 parking spaces per classroom, and we would exceed that by a fair margin. That doesn't mean that that's not a challenging site. I mean, I do know that during school functions there are, parking is difficult, and so that is definitely something that needs to be considered.
Dr. Kingman, one thing Brooks and I were kind of tossing around in phase two, in phase two, if the district were to move into that down the road, I think that Circle Drive and things could possibly be augmented to the west to gain a little more linear space, and that might help with adding an additional pickup drop-off area. Because we realize that's always a concern of the principal and staff, is how many drop-off and pickup areas can we gain? And so we could see that as a possibility there, but that would need to be worked out in that phase two component of it.
Thank you.
Dr. Kingman, I know this all predates my arrival to the board, but I have a question. Were you all aware of the challenges that these men are presenting today when the board selected Fannin as an elementary school to which school went to Fannin? Was it Austin or was it Altaloma? So were you all aware of the challenges that they're facing now?
Yes.
At school? Yeah.
Other questions? Thank y'all.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Gomez, we're going to get an update on academic programs.
Dr. Keeman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board, I want to connect back to this, sorry, wrong clicker, to the board goals that you all approved this fall. This evening's academic update will specifically address Goal 1 and Goal 3 as we move forward. I first want to begin because the topic of this evening's conversation connects back to our work in school improvement. So we discussed this information in great detail in the fall semester, and part of our commitment was ongoing updates to the board about how our campuses engaged in the process were progressing and the monitoring of those campuses specifically in addition to our regular district monitoring. So, for clarity, because it's important that we work from facts, not other information that may be shared, we are talking specifically about the following campuses here: McGill, Bel Air, Bradford, Fannin, Goliad, and Lincoln. It's also important to point out SAISD does not have a single campus in 4 years of unacceptable performance. So we do not have a single campus in year 4. The 5 elementary campuses have 3 years, and Lincoln has 2 years. Again, still very serious, still something we are committed to improving, but it's important that we work from facts. So for campuses and school improvement, and specific to these campuses that are engaged in a turnaround plan, the specifications come directly from the Texas Education Agency. So as a reminder from our fall discussions, if a campus has been identified as unacceptable for 2 consecutive school years, the campus must prepare and submit. Again, you may recall we talked about how in the business world, we don't just prepare a plan and submit a plan and then not see a plan out. Okay, so I just want to provide the clarity because that doesn't always align with what the agency requires school districts to do. And then a turnaround plan must take effect no later than the school year following the third consecutive unacceptable rating. So again, for the summary of where we are engaged in the process and where each individual campus that we're discussing this evening is, McGill is in the phase of implementing their approved turnaround plan. Goliad is in the process of implementing their approved turnaround plan. Bel Air is in the developing and implementing the turnaround plan. Fannin is developing and implementing, and Lincoln is in the development phase. Now I want to connect back because I know we have a lot of very academic language in the school system. So I want to remind you of the information we also discussed in November regarding assessments and changes specifically to NWEA's MAP assessment, which the district uses grades 2 through high school. So in July of 2025, NWEA implemented a new set of national MAP growth norms, replacing the previous norms from the summer of 2020. This update reflected significant post-COVID shifts in student performance and changes in U.S. student demographics. It's also important that I remind everyone we look at MAP for a national comparison, not always looking just within the state itself. That norm referenced assessment is very important for educators. So as we reviewed, what this means is their RIT scores remain unchanged, but the norm referent groups have been adjusted to align with the current performance levels. Now, some of you who have children in our system may be asking, what's a good RIT score? And the first thing I'm going to say is, what was the beginning RIT score? Because it's not like we think of school, what's a good grade? It doesn't work to that level. So it's not like an A. So it all depends on where the child was at the beginning, how they're progressing in the middle, but ultimately how they do at the end of that school year. And so we are currently in process of what we refer to as our middle of the year assessments. So I'm going to recap specifically some beginning of year assessment data for these schools, because that was our commitment to you. Then in February, after we've completed our ILMA-wide data, we will be back to report so you have a comparison from beginning of year to middle of year, how the data is progressing. And then again, in summary, in July 2025 norms offer a more accurate and relevant benchmark for understanding student achievement on the current state, because nationwide, since COVID, there has been a dip. So we'll begin first with Bel Air Elementary. Again, it's important that we work with facts. So some factual information before we dive into their data. Bel Air, with the last report that we have from the state, with our economically disadvantaged status, is a campus at 74.3% economically disadvantaged as compared to the 58% of the district and the 61% of the state. Bel Air also currently has approximately 328 students. I think it's important as we talk about grade levels and teams of teachers. All of our campuses do not have 4 teachers. Our campuses where we're limited to only having 2 teachers per grade level, it is very difficult for the teachers in those grade levels for a lot of reasons. So also as I go forward, I want to recap for you the number of sections in these campuses. So Bel Air currently has 3 kindergarten sections, 3 first grade sections, 2 second grade sections, 2 third grade sections, 2 fourth grade sections, and 2 fifth grade sections. So when we're in the upper grade levels, what that means is one teacher teaches all of those kids RLA, social studies. The other teacher teaches them all math and science. Okay, so just for point of reference as we move forward. Okay, so as we first look at Bel Air in terms of ILM class and DIBELS, which we know is our early reading assessment, I want to point out also from the fall, and back to what I said earlier, beginning this school year, the 25-26 school year, second grade began MAP. So you're only going to see KN1 for that ILM class early reading assessment. Remember from our past conversations also, I don't want to just keep saying remember, but it's important that I point these out because you get a lot of information. When we know that in San Angelo as a whole, in San Angelo ISD, we have students entering kindergarten well below grade level for our district as a whole. So you can see Bel Air's kindergarten as compared to the district at well below, it's pretty comparable. But we are quite concerned when we look at Bel Air's first grade. They're well below as compared to the district, well below. And so when we talk about resources and staffing and how do we push in additional support, those are the things we look to provide differentiation among these campuses. So I told you this campus has 3 first grade sections. It's also important because we are very strategic on staffing. And staffing is real. The challenges we have with that, not just with San Angelo ISD, but with the nation. But with a campus that does have larger gaps to close, we can't have 3 brand new, non-experienced teachers in that grade level. And so those are the type of things we look in placement. You all know we had a leadership change at this campus last year. We also had a key hire in that first grade, one of the most skilled teachers district-wide, first grade. But I only give you that information not to disclose anything about staff, but we don't just fill positions to fill positions. We're looking at the data, we're looking at the student demographics, and we're saying, how can we best support? Now, also in full transparency, I don't want to disclose the staff member because their confidentiality is very important. We have a brand new to the profession teacher in that grade level. That's why we have a teacher retention specialist, so that staff member can be there to coach that new teacher to the profession. So recapping for Bel Air, we are closely monitoring their first grade data because they are trending below the district. And first grade is pivotal to getting a student to reading on grade level by third grade. When we move to the next slide and we look at cohorts of students, this is also important. We just don't compare from year to year. Those aren't the same groups of students. So we follow students through the grade levels. That's how we form our interventionist schedules. Interventionists are key in our campuses. All of our elementary campuses do have a minimum of one full-time interventionist. Some of our campuses, including Bel Air Elementary, have an additional part-time interventionist. So we can track this data here by cohort, see how the students did kindergarten, see how they did first grade. There is a big jump in expectations in M-Class from kinder and first grade. Again, going back to the expectation, the amount of standards the state has set forth in RLA for first grade. But first grade is a pivotal year again on getting students on track for third grade reading. So you can see there's slow growth between first and second grade. However, what is key here is those students, we cannot, it is urgent, we cannot have students remaining in the well below level. So while growth is slow, you do see students after 2 years of instruction moving from that well below to the below. I know I'm going kind of quickly, but I have a lot of campuses, so I don't want to go too quickly, but I also want to be aware of our time. So I'm trying to look at facial to make sure we're doing okay. Then, when we move forward, we also look at cohorts by first grade. Again, first grade, we only have the 2 years of M-Class data, and we see district-wide that decrease from K to 1 with those standards. What will be very telling is this MO year data for this group of students. So I look forward to bringing that back to you. Our next slide here for Bel Air shows we're moving back to MAP. Again, you'll notice this is only third, fourth, and fifth. I'm not trying to disclose second grade at all. There's no cohort data to share because second grade this year only has MAP, and last year they had M-Class. We can't compare two different assessments in a cohort manner. So that's why you see third, fourth, and fifth, and you can see specifically in math. Again, we're looking at the group of students as they progress up the grade levels. You can see in all three grades the grade level gains in their math, RIT scores. Also, you can see in that chart below, though, we still have work to do, and we fully acknowledge that work we have to be done, where for no more simplistic way to describe this, we want the bar graphs to hit the diamonds. Okay, that's the simplest way I can say that. So we are making growth. You see those gains there, but we have more growth that need to be met. I might make y'all laugh a little bit. Don't use the word diamonds. Math teachers get really upset. Okay, remember, I've been with pre-K. We start talking about that vocabulary because they first say diamonds. Just wanted any secondary math teachers that were listening to understand that we start talking about that vocabulary in pre-K. Then moving on to our RIT scores and RLA, you can see fourth and fifth grade, and you can see the gains there. Now I do want to point out, look at the bar graph and look at where we are on growth. There is greater growth that we are making in the upper grade levels for reading at Bel Air. So in summary at Bel Air, we are very closely watching first grade and second grade. Okay. As we move forward to Bradford, again, it's important that we work from facts. This campus is not in year 4 of unacceptable performance, and I say that because I had to go out and have some conversations with some staff who were a little offended by misinformation. So it's not 4 years, it's 3 years. It's also important that I point out this is the bilingual magnet campus for the district. So going back to recap for this campus, Bradford has approximately 85.2% economically disadvantaged students as compared to the district's 58 and the state's 61. They currently have approximately 453 students enrolled. In kindergarten, first grade and second grade, they have 2 regular grade level sections, and they have 2 bilingual sections. So when you talk about PLCs, placement of students, it's 2 and 2. In third grade, they have 3 regular sections and 1 bilingual section. In fourth grade and fifth grade, they have 3 classes per grade level. Okay, so in the 4th and 5th grade level, teachers departmentalize. There's an RLA teacher, a math teacher, so forth. Okay. So as we look here at Bradford, when you see their kindergarten coming in, their kindergarten is coming in higher than the district at the well below, about 10%, and their first grade is about 20%. Then I want to point out some information on this next slide where you see the cohorts as we go through and talk about our current second grade as they've moved forward. You're going to, in the second grade where it says map reading, okay, map reading proficiency level is only for the English version. I pointed out Bradford was our bilingual campus. We had 22 students at Bradford who took the grade 2 RLA test in Spanish. So their data cannot be in here because it's not a comparable assessment. So K and 1 at Bradford, we're monitoring closely, kindergarten and first grade. I did want to show you though specific, just pulling out the bilingual. So I'll pause a minute and let you see those levels. And again, the reason why you have no data in second grade is because those 22 students took the RLA test in Spanish. So we look at first grade with the 2 years. We do see the levels that I've already pointed out that we're closely monitoring and that well below. Then here's first grade bilingual. Oops, I'm sorry. I got click happy, I'm sorry. I'm trying to look at all the screens. Now, we'll go to the upper grade levels with RIT scores. So this slide is specific to math. You can see the grade level gains in those cohorts as they go through the grade levels. And you also have the picture graph to show the observed growth. And then in RLA, while we know we have very specific work at Bradford in those primary grades, we are seeing the gains in the upper grades. Also, in full transparency, as we have shared with the board the difficulties in staffing, this was a specific campus where we could not find a qualified 4th grade teacher, and for RLA specifically, and we weren't going to just fill the classroom with a long-term sub. We had an experienced teacher that was in a specialty role that said, please put me back in the classroom so I can provide Tier 1 instruction to those students. That's just a testimony of the educators we have in this district. So, as I said, we provide differential support based on needs and the demographics of our school communities. Bradford, with their emergent bilingual population, has a full-time interventionist and has what we refer to as an EB student support teacher. So it's not a one-size-fits-all staffing. It's very specific to that school community. Moving forward to Fannin. Some overview as we discuss Fannin. Fannin is approximately, the last time it was reported to the state, 81% economically disadvantaged as compared to the district's 58% and the state's 61%. Current enrollment for Fannin is approximately 371 students. This is a campus where we have 4 kindergarten classrooms, 4 first grade, 4 second grade, 4 third grade, 3 fourth grade, and 3 fifth grade. And again, in the upper grades, starting in 3rd grade, they do departmentalize. As we look first at the kindergarten and the first grade data for M class, you see that the student population for Fannin does come in higher than our district, well below, which is a great concern for us, again. And then in first grade, still above the district average and well below. As we move forward and look at cohorts of students, you see that as we go up from kindergarten to first grade with that cohort, you saw the closing of that well below, and then as they moved up to second grade. For Fannin, we are seeing the progress at the primary grades. Staffing in some of the upper grades has been our challenge at Fannin. Then we can look at our current first grade. Again, I want to reiterate the need that we cannot wait, the urgency to have students reading on grade level by 3rd grade and the importance of first grade. So to see the closing of that gap from kindergarten to first grade is very positive information. Then moving to NWEA map. For math, you can see the cohorts across the board. Now, it's great that we are seeing gains, but the gains are not great enough. We have more growth that is needed in math. That came down to staffing and looking at staff experiences and staff strengths, and there were some very specific staffing placements made to help with the needed growth. Yes, we were seeing growth, but we weren't happy with just the amount of growth. We need more. As we look at reading, we're seeing the gains from 3rd to 4th, gains from 4th to 5th, but we need more in 5th grade. Okay, again, I'm kind of watching to make sure I'm not going too quickly. Goliad, our next campus. Currently, we have approximately 503 students on this campus. This campus is approximately 80% economically disadvantaged as compared to the 58% for the district and the 61% for the state. You can see in their kindergarten where they're coming in at the well below as compared to the district. And so when we look at the gaps that we have to close there, that is something we're looking at specifically with interventionist. And then in first grade, you can see that we're still above that district well below, but it's not as significant as the kindergarten. Still fully acknowledging it, but when you're looking how do you prioritize and where do you push in supports, that's super important. Now moving to the cohorts of students, so current second grade. I'm going to take just a second and let you look from their experience from kinder, first, and second. Now, none of us are accepting of still having 50% at approaches and below benchmark level, but this group of students has made significant increase from starting in the system at 61% well below to 10% in second grade. Now for our current first grade. So there is an increase in students performing at the benchmark level, but it is slow growth. Moving to MAP RIT, you can see across the cohorts, gains in all 3 levels, but the greatest gains in observed growth being in that 5th grade specifically. Then in reading, it's a little bit of the opposite. And the fact that the math observed growth in 5th grade is higher than the observed growth in reading, but both of them are still meeting their projected growth. I don't think I told y'all how many sections at Goliad. Maybe I did or didn't? I don't think I did. I'm sorry. That was not intentional. At Goliad, we have 4 sections of kindergarten, 3 sections of 1st grade, 2 sections of 4th grade, 3 sections of 3rd grade, 4 sections of 4th grade, and 4 sections of 5th grade. Now for our final elementary campus, we have McGill. McGill is approximately 75% economically disadvantaged as compared to the 58% for the district and 61% for the state. There's currently approximately 494 students at McGill with 4 kindergarten sections, 4 1st grade, 4 2nd grade, 4 3rd grade, 4 4th grade, and 4 5th grade sections. So I want to give you just a minute to really look at a point of pride and an interesting data point for McGill. McGill is one of our outliers in the fact that their 1st grade is coming in with their well below lower than the districts. I've continued to say you've seen that pattern in these schools engaged in school improvement. They have a significant gap to close from 1st grade to 3rd grade. McGill is already trending above. And all of those teachers serving are experienced teachers. As we look at cohorts, our current 2nd grade, you can see the progression and the gap is closing. Again, none of us are okay with the fact that we basically shifted. You can see the shift from kindergarten and 1st grade well below to that's out of balance. We should not have 63% of kindergarten students well below. But as they go through, you see that shifting to 51.8% approaching benchmark. Then the current 1st grade. So still, while they're an outlier in the well below, the reality is we have approximately 60% of 1st grade students that came in beginning of the year well below or below grade level that we have to move forward. Then you can see the MAP RIT scores. You see double-digit gains for all 3 of these grade levels. That's why I like to include the bar graph, though. 3rd grade has exceeded their projected growth so far. Doesn't mean we're done. Just means the trajectory is on a great pace. 4th grade, we're hitting it, but we still need more growth. Same with 5th grade. Then in reading, you can see the 4th grade gains. They are higher than those 5th grade gains, but they're still making projected growth. So
Can I ask you a question before we go off
absolutely.
Of elementary schools? Sorry. Okay, so on any of these elementary schools are well below going from, and I guess beginning of year data, but going from 1st to 2nd grade is where we're seeing a significant jump. I know McGill's doing a great job, but as far as even McGill, all of them, 1st to 2nd grade is where we're seeing the significant jump. Is that because our well below are so well below in kindergarten that they're making progress and they haven't reached that like we're making gains and we're not seeing, like, is there a way to measure that gain, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yes.
That are we getting those gains in K-1? We're just still not, the gain isn't enough to get us to that next threshold? Or is it that we're not getting those gains between K and 1? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I do. That all depends on the campus. Some of the campuses, we're not getting enough gains from K-1. There's also a significant jump in the expectation from first grade. So the reality is when we have the number of students coming in well below, we're already as a district of all different economically disadvantaged backgrounds, but even at 58% from the district, we're already coming in 10% higher, well below the national average.
Yeah,
so, and then you add an increase on economically disadvantaged status, which does have a direct correlation. Those campuses, just super important, all of our teachers work hard, but those teachers have a harder lift to close the amount of gains, or amount of gaps that the students come in their classrooms with. And that's why it's important that as we make recommendations, that we have the understanding we have to provide the support based on the students we're serving.
And maybe for board input, when we are supporting, I mean, obviously on this, we're talking about the well below. Like that's and those are the first kids we gotta find. What else are we doing to support? Because when you look at that, our below benchmark number is increasing, which is great.
Correct.
Except they're not moving to at benchmark yet. And so what are we doing to support our teachers and those students to get them from, not just from well below, but to at benchmark?
Absolutely. That's why we use everything based on growth. That's why when you see the MOY data. So we're committed that every student, regardless of where they enter the system, because we owe it to the student that comes in well below just as much as we owe it to the student that comes well above. We owe that student that's well above to also continue growing. So we look at each individual student. We cannot stay stagnant and we cannot drop. Now, the rate of growth will vary for the learner, but we have to be committed for every single student to have continued growth. I know we spend a lot of time talking to the well below because in terms of school improvement, that's what the system is for. But our commitment cannot just be we're only focused around these students. We have to look at each individual child.
I have a question along those lines. This doesn't apply to all campuses, but there were a few campuses that you'd see students come in at masters and they over time, or we're getting growth from the below level, or we're seeing a regression towards the mean of the masters. Do we know why that is, and are we trying to intervene on that to try and keep those kids at masters as well?
Absolutely. Now, do we know the why? The why goes down to each individual child. Okay, there can be a lot of different reasons. There can be the reason I'm not being challenged. There can be the reason I didn't feel good that day on the test. All of those variables, but that's why we have to look at each individual student. So yesterday, as you all are well aware, was a district-wide professional learning day, and we excel in professional learning for the state. We do not have a deficiency on the professional learning that we provide because it is differentiated. So, for example, I'm going to use the high school level because that connects directly with our mission statement of Future Ready Graduates. Our AP teachers were not in a session with just the core teachers getting the same information. Their professional learning was geared to gifted and advanced learners for depth and complexity. Because if you don't challenge gifted learners, they won't always perform at a gifted level. And there's this misinformation that gifted learners or advanced learners always do great in school. That is not a true statement. If you do not challenge them and you do not keep them engaged, they can very much fall behind. So I hope that gives you a general answer.
Do our elementary school teachers get that same type of professional learning?
Yes. So it all depends on the time of year. Again, we know that we have from the state a new curriculum. So they first had to be trained on the new curriculum resource. But any teacher in our district that has gifted learners must have the 30 hours of foundational training or be working on acquiring that training. And then once they have their 30 hours, they must have a 6-hour annual update.
Thank you.
Lincoln?
Lincoln.
Okay, Lincoln. So Lincoln currently has approximately 779 students. Approximate economically disadvantaged rate, the last time we received the state report, was 74% as compared to the 58% for the district and 61% for the state. So now we're talking grade levels that don't have M-class. So we're talking all in terms of MAP and RIT scores. First, you have the math information. I'm going to jump down to simplicity on the bar graph. 7th grade math, we've discussed this many times. I'm sorry, Ms. Duncan, I don't try to just bring this up every time, but 7th grade math for our district is a grade level that we are working on. That's not to pick on 7th grade math at all. There are a lot of things that go into 7th grade math. So yes, 7th grade math is an area that we're looking at very closely at Lincoln. I don't want to disclose any confidential information, but when we talk about the importance of staffing, we talk about the reason why school districts offer contracts so that teachers fulfill those contracts. When we lose staff in those key core areas, it very much has a direct impact on our student outcomes. So, also want to say that 19 students in Algebra 1 in 8th grade take a different version of the MAP test, so the cohort gains cannot be accurately calculated. Then, here's some additional charts for observed math by grade level. It's what makes 8th grade a little tricky with it being a different assessment. But the summary here is we do see growth over the years in grade 8, but grade 7 is stagnant. And we've had some fluctuation in 6th grade, depending on the year. Then, as we move forward to reading, you can see there are gains. We just expect larger gains than what we're currently seeing. Again, you can see that through 7th grade. I think all teachers are more than special people. 7th grade teachers have an extra special calling. It's just a reality. Then as we look at observed growth in reading, I know this is small, especially on these big screen TVs. It's even small on my paper. Hopefully it's better on the TVs next to you. But these charts again compare BOI from year to year and reviews that projected growth at the same time of the year. So as we look at over time in the area of reading, grade 8 has also shown some growth. So that's a common area for 8th grade in both RLA and math. We are seeing growth. The difference between 7th grade math and reading is we're seeing a slight decline in 7th grade. And the consistency there is that we've had fluctuation in 6th grade, depending on the year. So I know this is a lot of information. I know that we had prior conversations. I personally apologize that you didn't receive this formal report as originally planned in December. I know that it's a lot. I'm happy to answer any questions that I haven't already.
Thank you, Dr. Gomez. I do know that, this is a lot. Obviously, we all got it in email in December, but I appreciate the fact that you're going through it today. And I think it's important that we are looking at it, and we look at our middle of the year as well, come next month or March, whenever it's available, so that we make sure we're knowing where we need to be allocating resources and trying to help get these, the growth where we need it to be. Any questions for Dr. Gomez? Thank you. Okay, if it's okay with the board team, there are people who've been sitting here patiently. I was going to move action item B ahead of the consent items to consider and take possible action to identify elementary campuses for closure, unless someone on the board has a problem with that. Yeah. So we're going to go to action item B, which is to consider and take possible action to identify elementary campuses for closure. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Moran first.
Okay, well, tonight the Board of Trustees is being asked to consider a vote to close elementary campuses due to declining enrollment and loss of revenue. This years-long discussion dates back to at least October 20 of 22. The Board of Trustees has been provided with demographic forecasts, financial projections, facility evaluations, and academic initiatives. I acknowledge the emotions tied to discussions around closing any campus. I also recognize the impact on students and families. The administration's been thoughtful to balance that with the reality of planning for the future and ensuring financial solvency, filling staffing vacancies, maintaining our facilities, and most importantly, providing a rigorous academic program for all of our students, regardless of campus, with a qualified and capable teacher. The Board of Trustees heard a report last week that if no campuses close, we're facing about $4.3 million deficit as of May of 2027. You've also heard that the district saves roughly $900,000 annually for each elementary school we close. Currently, we are 33 teachers short, which means that many classrooms are being covered by retirees and long-term substitutes. In Dr. Gomez's report tonight, some of those scores are reflective of a lack of a qualified teacher. We're thankful for these individuals who are covering these classes. However, nothing replaces a full-time qualified teacher for our kids. Research shows that when a student has a poor classroom teacher, it takes 3 years to recover. You also heard that our academic growth is trending in the right direction, and very soon we'll be excited to present our mid-year middle of year map testing data that you'll be hearing pretty quickly, probably in the next month or so. By reducing the number of elementary campuses, we'll be more equipped to serve our students by placing these qualified teachers in classrooms. In 2022, a recommendation was made to close Altaloma, Austin, San Jacinto, Reagan, and Bowie. Since that time, we've closed Altaloma, Austin, and San Jacinto. The board received the rankings for the remaining elementary schools based on these attributes: cost per student, facility condition, age of facility, capacity, expandability, special programs, educational adequacy, and spatial adequacy. And based on this criteria, Reagan and Bowie scored the lowest. It's the recommendation of our administration to consider these two campuses for closure at the end of the 26-27 school year, which is 17 months from now. If approved during that time, an attendance boundary committee will work to consider how we can redraw attendance boundaries for the remaining 12 elementary schools and make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees this summer for consideration. If approved, the new boundaries would be effective July 1, 2027 to begin the 27-28 school year. This will provide time for the district to communicate the new boundaries and allow families time to plan.
All right, so it is, admin has been presenting for the last 6 months, more or less, to give us the data, but basically it's the decision, it comes up to the decision of this board whether or not we want to, but whether we choose to close elementary schools or not. So I will open it to any questions or comments And then I will entertain a motion.
Dr. Keeman and Dr. Moran, you just mentioned now that in October of 2022, Park Hill recommended that Reagan be shuttered, closed, and that's not the case. If you look on SAISD's website right now, there's a YouTube video, and it shows RJ's recommendation from Park Hill. And I found that last night, guys. I found it. I've been racking my brain thinking, how is this all working? This is his quote that SAISD has on the website right now. First, he was introduced because he has extensive experience when working with districts that have enrollment loss. He was hired to do a thorough assessment on all facilities in SAISD, and he brought his recommendations to the board. He recommended when it comes to the Reagan and San Jacinto, he recommended that Reagan and San Jacinto make the merge, right? Turning San Jacinto into a pre-K facility. So, I'm looking at that slide, and it's showing the factors, right, when considering closure. I asked Dr. Moran to provide the board with the weighted values of those factors. What's the base data? How do I know? How can I do my due diligence as a board member with research if I don't know what factor weighs what? How do I know if special programs weighs more than capacity? How do I know if age of facility weighs more than facility condition? So the response to that was that our cabinet independently, I have so many notes, if y'all give me some grace please and go through that the cabinet independently worked on that, and somebody else told me just to kind of trust the process. So I thought, okay, let me just assume that all these factors weighed the same. So I went through different schools. RJ's telling us, let's see, I got his quote here. Well, first of all, we know that Reagan and San Jacinto made the merge, right? So automatically increase enrollment at that school. You look at Reagan's campus, it has plenty of space and capacity for expandability. It currently houses different special programs, and it can house many more in the future. Let's see here. So I'm just going through all the factors when considering school closures, and Reagan in particularly. He spoke that Reagan has a large site, 7+ acres. There's an opportunity for a new elementary school to be built on that site. This is his quote. If we are thinking about if we are making these moves now, where these students are moving from San Jacinto to Reagan, we don't want to have to move them again in the future. If a new facility, or should I say when a new facility is built. Park Hill, or RJ, goes on to state that the large on-site parking spaces on multiple sides of the building would accommodate a newer facility, benefiting students and parents alike. Reagan, this is another quote, Reagan has more opportunities when considering these moves, and a lot of consideration, thought, and planning went into these recommendations. End quote. Like I said, all of these are on the school website now. I didn't have to go digging for any information. It's up right now. Another slide after that with the sustainability plan states from SAISD, if your student's campus is closed or repurposed as part of the plan, your student will be zoned to the campus they merge with, and existing feeder patterns will not be affected. That's on the website as we speak. The next slide on the website.
You're talking about the 2022 plan on the website?
It's on the website.
Yeah, but it's the 2022 plan.
I'm going off of, yes.
Yeah, just making sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I knew what we were
A
talking
lot of our data is going off of 2022, so that's what I'm doing also.
Yeah, you're good. I'm good. I just want to make sure I know.
Yes, sir. So the next slide on the website states, Reagan's site could accommodate a new elementary to be built on site in the future and would allow the same students within the same boundary to attend the new school after construction. So I'm wondering, when did all this change? Because Dr. Mann, you just stated that it was proposed that Reagan is to be closed. So going slide by slide through my emails, right? Let's see, it talks about budget impacts and immediate savings. I really want somebody to break down how the almost $1 million in savings, how can we get that each year if everyone will be keeping their jobs? That's another question I had. You all saw that. I understand maintenance and utilities will decrease, but not the budget impact you're showing with almost $1 million. If we still have the same staff, we're still feeding the same amount of students. That's something that I really need somebody to help me understand. The next slide that's given to me is academic progress, more consistent curriculum, and it's titled "A Look Back at 2022." Like I just stated, we're still using 2022 reports as data, so I am also. On one slide that's presented, like Dr. Moran is stating today, it shows Altaloma, Austin, San Jacinto, Bowie, and Reagan to close or repurpose. These are on the slides that I'm seeing today. On the next slide, it says future phase, 5 to 10 years, that there will be a future phase to address Reagan. So here I go. I'm going down, you know, the factors when considering school closures. So I'm like, okay, and let me look at different campus costs per student, because we have tons of information to go through. We have Fannin, Bel Air, Reagan, and Crockett at the top of campus costs per student. That's costing us the most. Now, we have to eliminate Fannin because we're adding on to it right now. There's improvements. It's part of the bond. So let's forget about that school. We got Bel Air as our number one school that's costing the campus the most money. We got next on the list Reagan, and we got next on the list Crockett. But let's forget about Crockett because we're adding improvements to that school too. So okay, then let's go down the next category, age of facility. All right, we got Reagan at the top, built in 1909. Next, we got Santa Rita at 100 years old. Next, we got Glenmore, 100 years old. Next on down that list is McGill. But we gotta eliminate McGill because we're putting millions of dollars into that school. So let's eliminate that. This is me trying to figure out what weighs more, right? Because we didn't have that data. So next, current campus capacity. These three schools are close to or at capacity or above. Top of the line is Fort Concho. Next in line is Bonham. Our third school is Santa Rita. The rest of our elementary schools after that are fairly close in percentages, with the lowest elementary school with campus capacity being Crockett, 48%. So then I go to our next slide we're given with the potential projects list bond 2025 FAC meeting. On there, we had a category, campus additions and renovations projects. This is the one we're currently working on, right? Elementary right sizing, a kitchen at Fannin, a cafeteria, a library, admin addition, plus sped renovation. On top of McGill replacing classrooms, a library. On top of Crockett receiving kitchen, a new kitchen, a cafeteria, and classrooms. Estimated at $42 million, approved. On that list, there was also a suggestion of kitchen and cafeteria replacements at Glenmore Elementary and Santa Rita because of its age and size. Site modifications and drainage are also included. I'm assuming it floods in those areas. I'm not exactly sure. Another bond project was Bel Air. Replaced 2 buildings with new buildings that house classrooms, library, special ed, and Holloman with also adding 4 additional classrooms, estimated at $25 million, didn't pass. So I asked for, now I'm assuming, okay, I'm looking at all of this criteria. I'm assuming that the top of the list for Reagan is age of facility. It's the oldest school we have in San Angelo. So is that what weighted us to the top? That's all I can think of. So when I asked about, now this is, I want to point out too, only the main building at Reagan is as old as 1906. The surrounding buildings are not. So I asked for estimates of raising just that main building if we needed to. And by us doing that, would we still be able to accommodate the students in the buildings in the perimeter? Dr. Moran said we could not. So if we took down that main building, it would include us rebuilding to include a new kitchen, library, and office. But we could utilize Building C at Reagan Elementary for office space, just as San Jacinto staff did. I looked at the blueprint, and of course my kids go to Reagan, so I go into that school, and to me it doesn't seem like the kitchen is connected to that high rise. So, but whether it is or not, if we look at what these other bond projects cost, and as much as included in each one, it doesn't seem like it'd be too much of a far stretch to rebuild that main building at Reagan. You have a campus that Park Hill, we paid for them to give us these suggestions, and he's saying Reagan is a great candidate to build on in the future because of the space and because of, the things that he listed. So next, I looked at, well, let me go back right quick. There's some community members raising the question in the statement that the Santa Rita, which is number 3 on the list, should not be touched because it was touched in the 2008 bond, but so were 2 other schools that were closed, as well as San Jacinto and Reagan. All of these schools many schools received updates in that 2008 bond that are no longer with us or are being discussed today. My question is, why was San Jacinto and Reagan neglected? Why were they not maintained and cared for? I hate to say this, but I think demographics played a big part in that. So now I look at my next slide, my transfer reports. I really want the board to evaluate these campuses that are in closer proximity, that are more transferable. Who's at the top of the list here? And we all know that elementary transfers have contributed to the imbalance in enrollment in our elementary schools. Top of the list is Fort Concho. Over 300 transfers to that elementary school. Absolutely no room to build. Number 2 on that list is Santa Rita. Over 160 transferred in. So we're talking about very low number of student population or home campus at these 2 schools. No room to build at these 2 schools. Deficiencies within the campus, old campuses, but yet they're the most sought after campuses that kids want to go to. Why? What is there that cannot be at these other campuses around San Angelo? So, looking at transfer reports. Next on my list is, okay, if we're gonna be shuttering or transferring students, closing down Reagan, now we have a big gap in that community. You close down San Jacinto, which everyone knows how I feel about that. You closed San Jacinto and you sent our students to Reagan Elementary. The distance from Reagan to San Jacinto was 2.3 miles. The closest school for San Jacinto would have been Fort Concho to be transferred to, but we can't do that because that school is packed. How are we going to get to Fort Concho? There's no way. So let's send them to Reagan. Reagan to San Jacinto was 2.3 miles away. Going through each school now. All right, we close Reagan. Let's go through the campuses that are closest to Reagan. Where can we spread out these students at Reagan that makes sense? The closest one is Bradford, 1.5 miles away. There's no way that we can send many students to Bradford. Reagan to Holloman, 2.8 miles away. Reagan to Goliad, 2.2 miles away. Reagan to Bel Air, 4.7 miles away. And I'm talking building to building. Reagan to Lincoln, 3.4 miles away. So then I'm thinking, man, what other schools are closer together? I find Glenmore and Bel Air, 1 mile away from each other. We have 2 schools right now that are operating that aren't even being considered, that are 1 mile away from each other. All right, so then I look at Crockett. Word is that Bowie will be going to Crockett. I don't see how because we haven't voted on anything, but let's assume again because all I've been doing here is assuming. Crockett, Bowie to Crockett, 2.2 miles. But wait a minute, what if we moved Santa Rita to Crockett? It's only 1.5 miles, Santa Rita to Crockett. Why this is significant is because anything over 2 miles, we have to provide transportation to the students, which will cost the district money there too. So another question I have is why are we willing to displace these schools that have a large number of students in comparison to campuses with much lower home campus enrollment, such as Santa Rita, one of the other oldest schools in San Angelo. School closures, as we all know, affect low-income neighborhoods, and we will lose value within our homes. I need to know that the alternatives are equitable. From my research, it doesn't seem to be. My history in San Angelo, I'm born and raised, and we need to see the equality across the district. Past San Angelo school closure history tells us that we're willing to close schools on one side of town in order to adequately fill the other. Taking into consideration like Sam Houston, Dr. Mann, I know you may not know this history. Closing down Sam Houston to fill Santa Rita, closing down Rio Vista to fill Lamar. Another surprising thing to me, man, is that McGill's one of the top schools right now in San Angelo. And it was set to close also, and that community came in and rallied, and look at us, putting millions of dollars into it. So things can turn, and they can turn quickly. So, where are we at here? My suggestion to the board is to please focus currently right now on our main goal, our number 1 district goal, which is our children's academics. Dr. Keeman, you said yourself that we have failed our kids, making a drastic change right now in the midst of us trying our best to bring the academics up. will only throw a wrench in that plan. I feel like it's irresponsible and a flat-out mistake. I can't support that right now. We need to get our campuses to a minimum, and I hate even saying this, but a minimum of passing before we consider this consolidation. Kids should be our number one priority. So, let's see here. I do understand the financial pressures that the district is facing. Elementary school closures are not just budget decisions. To my team, to the board, I really want y'all to fully consider things that I mentioned today, please. We're talking about increasing and increased spending in transportation, the learning gaps, emotional stress, adjustment issues, hardships, childcare strain, loss of neighborhood value, overcrowding in the campuses, safety concerns, the loss of more students within our district, guaranteed. We're trusted elected officials, and the entire community deserves us at our best. Please consider what I've spoke today. I haven't told anything that's not factual information. That being said, that concludes, most of what I had to present today. If anybody else has anything else to say.
Other thoughts or comments?
Carla, Ms. Cardenas, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for all your work. That obviously took a long time. I was not, because we were on the board, we weren't able to be at all the facility advisory committee meetings, but you were. So were there other options talked about? What did that look like in the conversations?
So I've learned now in my short time here that some of the conversations that I have are better left to private. And I don't like that because I'm here to be transparent. But to your question, I did raise the concerns on that committee, and I did provide suggestions, but they were not taken into consideration. And the feedback that I got back was that a new elementary deserves to be on that side of San Angelo, but where are we going to get the money from? What am I supposed to say to that? I'm a community member at that time, but I'm learning a lot sitting right here on this side of things. And I really want to thank the parents, the ladies who came to speak today, because I've been on that side and it sucks. And here I am sitting here going through the same thing again. My kids are going to go through it again. That is not right. There's opportunity for adjustments, and I commend you all for coming. The Reagan Rockets that are sitting here today, you're here because you take pride in your school. And I really appreciate what you do for those kids and for my kids too. It's not just about a building. People keep saying it's just a building, just a building. It's more than that. It's the location and it's the demographics that these schools serve. And we keep going off of 2022 data, and the data is posted all over our website saying that Reagan is in a great spot to build on. But now we're talking about it being closed a couple of years later. That does not make sense, and that is not right. That's why I'm here to speak on that, and I need you all to take what I'm saying into consideration, please. My constituents voted me in for this reason, and they voted you all in for this reason too. But back to your question, I did bring it up. I did mention it. Me and several other people on my team. That was the answer that I got.
Other comments or questions? Oh, No, I'm sorry, this is among the board. So only thing I will speak to, Carla, just as far as some of the questions you brought up. One thing was part of the reason the 22 stuff isn't what we're doing in 26 is because the bond passed in May based on what the committee came and recommended to this board. And so certain elementary schools then were passed and the community voted on right-sizing certain elementaries. And so now we're, with those elementaries, the money is allocated to do those things. So I mean, as far as why at one point in time, I know when we were discussing it years ago, there was talk about a brand new elementary school. I mean, before Dr. Moran, but that didn't ever come out of the bond committee to us. And so that the reason that's not there is that it was decided like we have, what makes sense to me is that we had enough elementary seats and we only have a certain amount of bond capacity for our community. Why would we go spend a bunch of money on a brand new elementary school when we have enough seats because of declining enrollment? And so whether I wasn't in the committee that obviously recommended which schools get the addition or not, but the reality is when the bond came, it was decided that right-sizing our current elementaries was a better plan for San Angelo than building a new elementary school. So that was, and let me finish, and then I'll let you finish, I promise. As far as the number of staff, the staff that won't be there will be through attrition. No one will be fired, everyone will keep their jobs just like we did before. But the reality is it's one less school resource officer, one less nurse, one less assistant principal, one less principal. And our teachers, where we are spending money to the state for our rehire, penalties to the state for our rehires, hires, if every teacher can have what the state says is 22-1 in elementary, that would be that's how we try to get every kid getting the same support so that then we can have the money to push in the interventionists and stuff that we've seen growth with. We just got to get it more robust. So that, I mean, as far as staff, that's where that comes from. And then as far as the lines, I think when Dr. Moran talked last week, and my understanding from last week, so I want to make sure I'm correct in understanding this, is that we would redraw all 12, if we closed, we would redraw the lines for all 12 elementary schools. So there would not be the distances. The community would get together just like we did for the bond and come up with 12 elementary districts that made sense for for the community as a whole, that made sense for the people who lived around those schools, so that there isn't, so it's not as simple as looking at, oh, well, I went to San Jacinto and now I went to Reagan and now I'm going to go to here. Like all of our schools will probably be, like, unless you live 6 houses from an elementary school, you're probably everyone's going to be, possibly every elementary district will be touched with that. And that's, so that as far as, that's how you work to make sure that it's equitable, and you get a committee together that you'll get to give names for, and everyone gives names for, so that we can have an equitable districting throughout the city that works well. So I just wanted, that's just answering the 3 questions that I heard from in there, but now you had a question for me.
Yeah, just to clarify, under the elementary right sizing on that bond committee, those were the only options we were given. We weren't able to make suggestions. They presented us with those 3 options, and that was it, final. It's these 3, and you have to make a decision which one is what you need to pick. That's 100%.
Again, I didn't get to attend them, but my understanding was that it started big picture and then was brought down to little picture, but I trust you on that.
Okay, that's a fact.
Yeah, I don't know anyway, but that's, other questions or comments?
Just so the people watching know, the 300 being transferred into Fort Concho are the GT kids, and the same thing with the Santa Rita kids or the GT program. And I know you know that, but just because people might be questioning why.
Yes, no, thank you for clarifying that. My question is, can a GT campus, can the kids be served at any campus? Does it have to be Fort Concho and Santa Rita? Do they have something different that other campuses don't?
I'll be glad to answer that. I think that's a topic probably for another meeting, because that's not necessarily related to this vote. But I will say the goal that I have had and our team has is that every child on every elementary can receive the high quality education, GT programming, and all those things. In fact, Dr. Gomez and I had this conversation last week because I don't think it's a secret. We've got so many elementary transfers across the district that we've got campuses that exceed capacity and some campuses that are at like 60%. And so our goal is to become efficient, but most importantly, to put a great teacher in front of every kid. And right now we're not doing that because we've got vacancies. We have 33 teaching vacancies around our district. And the reason is we have too many classrooms. A lot of them are half full. And so, to anybody that'd be concerned, I would say I'd rather put 22 elementary kids in a classroom with a great teacher than 16 kids in a classroom with a substitute. And that's the scenario we have right now. So you asked a question earlier about how do we save money by reducing the campuses with the number of teachers. And the simple fact is by closing 2 campuses, we can take those existing teachers and immediately plug them in to vacancies that we cannot fill. And so we'll then have more quality, high quality teachers in front of kids. And that's where we'll make the academic gains. We're struggling right now in some areas because we've had several teachers this year quit and walk out the door on their classrooms. And they have abandoned, and we're going to hear about 2 of them tonight. They've abandoned their kids, and we are scrambling to find a quality teacher for the classroom. So with declining enrollment, anybody that understands economies of scale understands that you cannot operate that many campuses if you don't have personnel, and you're circling the drain financially because you can't afford the number of staff. About 82% of our budget is human resources. And so when we talk about saving money in San Angelo, the first thing we look at is staffing. And the irony I've said is that we're overstaffed, but yet we have vacancies we can't fill. And it's because we're too spread out. And when this passes, if it were to pass tonight, then the goal then becomes to take those 12 elementary campuses and create an attendance zone for the kids that live in that attendance boundary to attend that school. So we can provide a teacher for every kid. We can provide great GT programming for every kid. So they don't have to necessarily, because we've got parents in our district whose children are GT that don't go to Santa Rita, Fort Concho, or Holloman. But we should be able to provide great GT programming at their home campus. And that's my goal. And I think for those that know me, that know our staff, our hearts are in the right spot. We have a duty to be good stewards of the finances of this district. And if we continue with 14 elementary schools, we're going to go bankrupt as a district. We can't afford to pay the staff we've got. There's too many. And so we're going to have to slim down and be more efficient with our staffing, or we won't have a future as a district. And along with that, the A through F ratings that TEA is looking at, the reason we're in this hole is because we have not staffed every classroom with a great teacher, and it's killing us. And so we've got to fix that. And that's been an issue because we've been declining enrollment since 2015. We were at over 15,000 kids. So this isn't a new issue. Problem is, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but COVID hit us, and for 3 years we didn't get A through F ratings. 2 years of A through F ratings were tied up in court cases, and so for 5 years, the districts across Texas did not get A through F ratings, and people fell asleep. And the reality is that our staff knew that we were struggling, but with the increase, because this declining enrollment has picked up speed for us. And some may think that they're fleeing the district when in fact it's fewer kindergartners come to school every year. That's the main reason. There's a few people that have left, but we get a lot of kids transferring in. It's lower kindergarten cohorts coming to us and larger senior classes graduating. So this recommendation isn't because I want to close schools. It's because this district hired me to be a good steward, and if we don't do something, we're going to go down in a ball of flames academically and financially. And we have got to take drastic steps to fix it in a very short time frame. So that's why this is even being discussed.
So I think the issues within the district started long before 2015, because many campuses have been closed down. Blackshear, Rio Vista, Day, all those campuses were deemed unsafe, but here we are 20, 25 years later, they were Head Start campuses. So issues have been in the district. It's nothing new. I get it. I know every single person on this board does not want to close a school or anybody to lose their jobs. But if you're telling me that that is the only way that we will move forward and succeed and progress in San Angelo, then what else is there to do? I have to trust my team. That being said, how can we make a sound decision on what campuses when we're given factors of considering school closures with no base data, no weighted value for us to do our investigating and seeing what schools make more sense? How can we make a decision if we don't know that?
Other comments or questions?
Dr. Moran touched on something that, and so did Ms. Cardenas. You know, like I said, I think I've told y'all before, I mean, y'all know, I've been doing this for 21 years now. And in 2005, we were called the West Texas Drain out in these areas because we had gotten down to 13,000 kids. Okay, 2013 all the way to 2016, we had gotten up to almost 16,000 kids. I mean, yeah, 16,000. And then the process started over again. But it started losing kids. We're back down, we are back down to 13,000 again. And maybe even less than that. But in that 21 years, you know, there we had Dr. Pugh, Dr. Bonds, Dr. Detloff, now Dr. Moran. We did everything we could without closing campuses. Remember 2012, I think it was, Bill? Or 2013 is when it was brought to us that, look, either we're going to start closing some campuses or we're going to start eliminating teaching positions, we're going to eliminate programs. Or our other option was eliminate the homestead exemption, which it was a local optional homestead exemption of 20%. And we opted to do that to keep schools open, to keep programs going. And I thought, okay, that's going to help. It did for a period, and now we have a $100,000, is it $100,000 state homestead exemption, which, if, you know, that hurts us. That's going to hurt us. I think they're going to make up for the money that we're not going to gain because, for 2 years. Yeah, for 2 years. Because I mean, I live in a home that is less than 100,000. So there are people that have gone from, we have people that have gone from paying school taxes to not paying any now. And some of these people still have kids in school. And so we're losing money, first by the state, and they're not helping any. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the state's not helping public school. They're not helping public schools at all, And so, like I said, this is nothing new. And when I was there in 05, it was 22 campuses, and they said we definitely need to get it down to 12 in 05. The bond process started in 07. First one failed, second one passed in 08. Oh, and San Jacinto and Reagan were touched at that time. They were worked on, okay? And all the north side schools. We made sure that Holloman, Bradford, Goliad, they were all fixed up because you wouldn't believe what condition they were in back then. They were just terrible. But we got through that. But we still kept 22 campuses open because you know what? We can figure this out. And then when 2013, when we got that influx of kids due to the oil boom in 2013, like, all right, we're doing great. Money's coming in. And then the whole process started again in 2015, started losing kids. When the bottom fell out here in these areas for oil work, people started leaving. People started moving. People moved to Midland. They moved to down by San Antonio, down by Houston, all those areas. They started leaving here again. And now we're back down to 13, but we had 22 schools. We've gotten it down to 14, and then what I need to know also is how many teachers does that free up from, say, the two schools, Reagan?
For teaching staff, and y'all feel free to jump in, but I think we gained about 6 to 8 teachers per campus when we closed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would estimate it to be about the same. And the board saw the breakdown, the line item breakdown of savings per campus. And I believe our enrollment right now is just over 12,300.
12,300. And, so that's, like I said, I've tried everything we can. I have. I have voted to eliminate this to keep this. I've voted to eliminate this to keep this. Let's do this to do this. And we never closed the campus. We didn't start doing that until we started our initiative for the bond and let the community say, okay, what do we need to do now? And like I said, I think I maybe went to 2 of those because we weren't part of those committees. I know you were part of the committees, but we weren't. And, they came back and said, we need to close some schools. And I thought, well, here we go again. But then, I kept thinking, what else can we do? And I just kept racking my, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And we just have to trust the plan. I do. The plan that they came up with, that we asked Dr. Moran and all them to come up with, and we'll go from there. I mean, it's just, it's become a burden to keep all these schools open, and it's been a burden for 25 years to keep them open because it costs money to keep them up, to keep them updated, to keep them upgraded. Maintenance is unreal on them on some of these campuses. It's just, you get the reports we get on maintenance alone, and you're going, wow, like HVAC is unreal. And I remember when we replaced a lot of HVAC back in 08 and 09. And it's already time to replace that stuff again, and you're talking about millions of dollars. And, it's just, I feel myself that let's just go with the plan. That's how I feel. Go with the plan and let's get this down to 12 like they told us 20 years ago. And let's see if that works now. So that's just my take on it. Okay, that's my 10 cents.
Well, if you're talking about campus costs, number 1 on the list is Bel Air. So that's what you're talking about.
Like I said, I don't want to argue.
No, I don't want to argue either.
No,
and I want to trust the process.
I'm not arguing, but I'm just saying, I want to go with the process that we assigned Dr. Moran. And of course, like you said the other day, you weren't here when we did that. But this is the process that the community came up with. This is the bond they told us that they passed. This is the bond that they passed. The community passed. The people in the city of San Angelo passed this with knowing that schools will be closed. And so I'm not going to sit there and say, okay, well, we're going to change it all because I don't like it, you know. So that's all I'm saying.
But you're not changing it. Reagan wasn't part of the...
I know Reagan was a part of it.
Wasn't part of the plan.
No,
but
back
now
in
it is.
2022, it wasn't part of the plan. Back in 22, it wasn't part of the plan when RJ brought that up. Now, the community bond,
Since then.
since then, which was done in, what year was that? Well, when was the bond passed? In 2020?
Last year.
25 last year? Okay, 22, RJ said, yeah, that'd be a great spot. Okay, we made a bond committee. Bond committee suggested you got to close some schools.
We were only
Wasn't that
given
part-
certain options.
But that's what y'all came up with. That's what y'all presented us.
Off of the
You were part-
options that we were given, we
Like I
weren't
said,
allowed to
but
make.
But those are the options that were given to us, that we entrusted the community to give to us. And that's what I plan on doing. That's what I plan on doing. Because that's what people voted for. That's what the community voted for. And, you know, can't go back and sit there and say, well, you know what, I know y'all voted for this, but we're not gonna close any more schools. We're just
I
gonna
guarantee
keep-
you, Reagan community didn't vote for that.
Oh, well, somebody voted. I mean, people voted. Like I said, people voted. People voted.
I sure
for it.
did. Hey, so here's the thing. There's so much data, and I want to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
I do trust the process. Like I told you all earlier, when Dr. Moran looks at us in our eyes and tells us, I'm gonna get these schools passing or A's. I believe him. I've told you that personally.
It's going to happen.
And I want you to see all of your plans through. I don't want you to leave us like Dr. Detloff presented this and where's he at? Gone. I really want you to see all of your plans through. And I believe that you can get us to passing. We have so much data that everyone works so hard on, but we don't have no data when it comes to factors of closing the school.
Well, listen.
I need that.
If you boil it down, Reagan's 118 years old.
What's the value on that? What's the base? What's the percentage of that?
The point is, there's not necessarily a future plan to replace that building. It would cost about 45 to 50 million to build a new elementary. And Reagan is so old that we are not interested in investing millions of dollars to upkeep that old building.
Who is we?
Well, we can start with the architects and engineers and the maintenance and the grounds and all the people that spend time trying to make sure that school doesn't have a significant problem like San Jacinto did.
I haven't heard any of them say that. I'm just asking for the
Well, I'm
the
telling
data.
you, the reason Reagan's out on the list, the main reason is it's 118 years old.
The main.
That's the main reason.
The main building right there, not the remainder of the
The
campus.
cafeteria is not big enough to house a larger campus. That's
I'm asking the board to
So, I'm
please
telling
provide
you-
me with the data that I need, that we need
I'm
to
just
make a
telling
better
you why it
sound.
made the list. And then Bowie is inadequate. It was built in the round. You have to go through a classroom to get to another classroom. The cafeteria is pitiful. The kitchen's pitiful. There's 6 portable classrooms on that building that have been there since the 80s. There are some outer buildings on those campuses that we could repurpose and use. But that's why, if you're looking for why, that's why.
I need the data. We need the data before we make this decision.
Other comments or questions?
I have some comments that I think I decided to write it down before the meeting because Bowie is looked just like Reagan and San Jacinto was special for Ms. Cardenas. Bowie's my special school. All 4 of my kids went there. And so this decision's been really a difficult one for me. And just bear with me while I read through this so I can get it out. All 4 of my children attended Bowie for over a span of about 20 years. When this agenda item appeared on social media, my oldest son called me and asked me about it. When I explained all the things that we've discussed at these board meetings over the phone, he started singing the Bowie fight song. He's 28 years old. So many of my family's memories began there. There are special teachers, our fall festivals, performances, friendships that have lasted a lifetime for my children and for me. And Bowie is where my kids learned important life lessons, how to stand up for what they believe in, how to work alongside classmates who are different from them, how perseverance matters. It's where I insisted they stay in the hard teacher's classroom, and then they later thanked me for keeping them in that classroom because now they love that teacher still to this day. Bowie isn't just a school building, it's a family. And I know that that's true of many elementary schools. And those early years are where our children learn to love learning and where they experience their first time academic successes, where trusted adults help shape them into who they become. My children's teachers still to this day celebrate their milestones on social media and ask about them when I run into them at HEB, and that says everything to me. But at the same time, we've known for many years that our district has many more elementary campuses than our current size can support. And when our neighborhood schools were built in the early to mid 20th century, schools were funded very differently. Communities supported our local schools our local public schools almost without question. And today, funding structures have changed, enrollment patterns have changed, families have more educational choices, and while school choice is every parent's right, it does come with a cost. And with declining birth rates, homeschooling, private schools, charter schools, public school districts have lost funding incrementally. And public schools will always be here to serve every child who walks through their doors, but we can no longer operate the way districts did decades ago or even in the way we did in the early 2000s. So I hate the idea of voting to close a school. And yet I'm hopeful that what this decision means for our district. Combining campuses would allow us to concentrate resources, better support our teachers, reinvest savings into the schools that remain open, and create more opportunities for students and stronger learning environments overall. Sometimes in order to grow stronger, we have to make painful cuts. I truly believe that reducing the number of campuses will allow our district to stabilize and flourish in the years ahead. And with a heavy heart, but with confidence in our responsibility for the whole entire district, I'm going to choose to vote yes to close Bowie and Reagan Elementary Schools.
Do I have a motion?
Dr. Keenan, for several years, this board's been on a mission to help ensure the long-term sustainability of SAISD. And I appreciate the data presented, but we've continued to hear from experts and receive reports in the areas of demography, facility conditions, academics, finance, as well as several communities. The goal of this whole endeavor is to long-term put kids and also our employees in better learning environments while ensuring that we remain committed to our constituents and to the sustainability of this district. This will require change, which also creates some temporary disruption. It's my belief that this change will produce positive results for the kids that attend SAISD, not only in near time, but also in years to come. Our community voted to support a bond election that helped address the needs of SAISD. This bond committee also supported plans to address the situation of declining enrollment, much like many other districts across the state are facing. The drop in attendance within the district continues to pinch an already tight budget. The fact that SAISD has been able to maintain a balanced budget while many of the public schools are adopting deficit budget is a testament to this board's diligence concerning fiscal responsibility. With decreased funding, it's become absolutely necessary to find ways to increase more efficient operating procedures, which has led us to deciding whether or not to close some of our aging facilities. Extensive studies have been done to assess and identify those facilities. With closure and consolidation, we create some greater personnel efficiencies as well as shed the district of increased maintenance costs on some of our aging facilities. So with that said, I'd move to identify Bowie Elementary and Reagan Elementary for closure prior to the 2027-2028 school year and authorize administration to take further action necessary to implement those closures.
What are you all afraid of? We need base data. What's the problem?
I think everyone else feels like they have the data.
So why don't I? I'm the newest board member.
I think we do
and
have
I would
the data
really
as
like
well.
the respect of providing the base data that was gone off of, so that I can be more secure in my answer. If you all have that, please share it with me.
I think it's the same data you have shared with us tonight, Ms. Cardenas.
I need to know the base data. I need to know the weighted value of the criteria, of the factors when considering school closures. We don't have that. I asked for it, and we do not have it. I'm asking for respect, please, as a new board member, to give me that before we make a decision on which campuses to identify for closure. What's wrong with that? Please provide me that respect.
And again, so we received an email with the rankings of how it was done, and with each category weighted equally, is my understanding, and then given a score.
Oh, it was weighted equally?
I think that was in the email. I don't want to.
No, it wasn't. But if it was weighted equally, then a lot of the points that I made today changed the game.
I don't think it changes the game based on the fact that for me, I will only speak for me. I did sit at some of those bond committee things. And I know at one point in time it was discussed new elementary schools. Do we want to build new elementary schools? I know it was, Carla, Ms. Cardenas, and people said, why are we going to build new elementary schools when we have enough seats? And so agreed. After that, it didn't get talked about again. But that was made by that committee. And so when it's said, okay, when we look at how we're going to do it next, if we're not going to build new elementary schools, which is what the community came and passed as a bond, was to right-size elementary schools. It was talked about school closures with the bond. Like, all of that was said when we went to pass the bond, and the community passed it. So now we're at the point where we have to choose which campuses to close. And like, Mr. Dindal has made a motion about what to close. And then there will be an opportunity for a second, and then there will be a vote. And then and then we move on from there. I mean, that's just how this works. That's how it all works. And then it may be that it's not. I mean, I think I've heard 3 people say that they are in favor of it, but that's all I've heard so far. I mean, like, my point is, like, but that's how that's how it works as far as being an elected official.
Yep, that's exactly how it works.
I'd like to make a comment, Dr. Human. Obviously, like Ms. Elfone, I grew up here. I may be the only one on here that went to Bowie. I went to Bowie 20% of my elementary because we got pulled out for the GT program. So I was there 1 out of 5 days. So Bowie, that's where I saw my wife for the first time. She went all 5 or all 6 years at Bowie. So while I don't have the same sentiment towards Reagan, I certainly understand the emotion that comes with these schools and how much they impact you and how much weight they carry within the community and how much we identify with them. And I certainly understand that. And I wish we were in different circumstances as a district. But you can't, or in my opinion, you can't be so focused on the nostalgia and the great things that something provided that you lose sight of the ultimate goal, which is to progress forward as a district and do what's right for the kids now. It's not about the wonderful experiences that my wife had, and I was actually in those portable buildings back in the 90s, so they're probably still there. They were junk then. They're probably not in great shape now, but that's what we've done. We've tried to keep these things going as long as they could because we care about them. We know what they've done for the city. We know what they've done for us, and we've tried to maintain that. But we're at a point where we've lost 3,000 students as a district, or close to 3,000 students in the last several years. And with that, you have less students, you need less classrooms. And if you are spreading your staff too thin, ultimately you can talk about money and all that, and that kind of comes into play, but ultimately you're spreading your teachers and your staff too thin, and we're not able to teach these kids effectively. And I think that's where we're at. We're spreading our support staff too thin. We're trying to maintain too many schools. And Ms. Cardenas, you make some great points, and some of those questions and concerns I think will be, in my opinion, will be in this rezoning process as far as, where kids go here. So some of that is not necessarily decided tonight. So some of those concerns are valid, and I think those need to be flushed through the rezoning process. But ultimately, I don't know any other solution to less students other than to reduce the classrooms and reduce the schools as part of that. And all that is an effort to get, like Dr. Moran mentioned, to get the best teachers in front of these kids. The class sizes is not going to, a parent approached me and said, well, I don't want my student to be crammed in another class. The class size is going to be the same. We're shooting for an optimal class size that research has shown to be the best for learning. So that's not going to change. We're moving teachers to make sure that happens. And ideally, like Dr. Moran mentioned, when you have more teachers together, you can have a better support system, stronger PTOs, which I know I talked to Ms. Cardenas, like that is as important part of this as, teachers are the lifeblood of what we do, but PTOs support that. And the more students you get together, the more parents you get together, the stronger those systems are. So while there's no real way around getting rid of small classrooms other than closing schools, to Mrs. Cardenas' point about, I think some of the questions is about what school to close. And I think some of your concerns are related to specifically the selection of Reagan. And I know some people have mentioned what the committee has decided, but even myself, it doesn't make any sense whether a committee came to us and said or not. It doesn't make sense to build another school when we have adequate classrooms. Would I love, and I've said this to other people, would I love to build a new school for that side of town? 100%. I would love for someone to come forward and say, I have $45 million, I want to build a new school over there. And I think we would all take that happily and build a brand new school, but that is not going to happen. And we can't pretend like we can still use that building long term. I'm talking about Reagan, specifically the main building, the important part. The other buildings are classes and stuff, but the core of the school over there is the main building. So whether the rubric is provided or not, it doesn't matter to me personally, because I can look at that situation and realize that building, based on other stuff we've been provided over the years, that building and that campus is not the best for the future of the district. There are other schools that are in much nicer shape, have much more long-term viability, that could have these students there and teach them just as good. And I hope that all the wonderful things that Bowie and Reagan have as far as culture and the wonderful, Bowie pride is as strong as it gets. I hope that gets that can be brought to whatever school those students go to, because ultimately the teachers that are at Bowie that have done a great job of maintaining this culture, and those teachers can be spread out, and we only hope that will continue to spread the wonderful things that they've done, and same for Reagan. So, I know that's long-winded, and I guess I'll conclude with I will second the motion that Mr. Dindal has proposed to close Reagan and Bowie.
And I know it's easy for those who are not directly impacted to make statements like you just did. I am directly impacted, and that's why I'm making the statements I am. I need to be clear that none of the facts that I presented today were based off emotion or memories or anything like that at these schools that it seems to keep being brought up. It's not about any of that. I'm asking for solid facts, for solid data. That's all I'm asking for. Why can't I be provided that?
And so we have a motion, we have a second. You have had heat scores and all of those things, just like the rest of us have for 6 months about campuses. They've been.
Not these, Dr. Kingman. You know which ones I'm asking for.
I don't know exactly what you're asking for, because I think the data you're asking for is stuff that was just a compilation of what the admin thought recommended. And I mean this very nicely, like, that's not who's voting. Like, the 7 of us are deciding who to vote.
Right.
And so, like, I think what Dr. Mills was saying is, like, it's based on the same data they used to rank it. That was just how they ranked it. We've seen the data over the last 6 months or 3 years about what it would cost to keep campuses up and make what their viability is for the next 20 years. And so I think what we have at the moment is that Mr. Dindal and Dr. Mills have made a motion and a second based on their own accumulation of that data of what 2 schools should close. And it's the board's decision to then vote. It's my job to bring us to a vote. And then after that, we go with whatever the next steps are. So as you recall, after the state legislature, everyone has to raise a hand, or we have to do a roll call. We'll do a raise of the hand. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say the same.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. All right. We are going to go back now to our consent items, which are consent items A through E. So that's consider donations, our minutes from our December 8th and our December 15th pre-agenda and regular board meeting, our library book purchase, our maintenance, transportation, and miscellaneous supplies adder, and our 25-022, which is miscellaneous supplies. Do I have a motion to approve consent items A through E?
Make a motion to approve consent items A through E.
I have a motion from Mr. Gallegos. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Dr. Mills. Do I have any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Please raise your hand. Aye. All against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. All right, next we have action item A, which is to consider the approval of our 24-25 audit report that was presented to us this evening. So do I have a motion to approve the August 31st, 2025 annual financial report and auditor's opinion?
Dr. Kingman, according to Ide Bailey, we received an unmodified statement, and that's the best you can receive as far as an audit statement is concerned. Commendations to Mr. Guerrero and his staff for a job well done again this year, and we're going to move on with that. I'll move to approve the audit report for 2024-2025.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Dindal and a second from Mr. Gallegos. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say the same. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have consider bills, accounts, and financial statements. That was also, that's for December. Do I have a motion to approve the bills, accounts, and financial statements?
Dr. Kingman, again, we reviewed these reports earlier in the meeting, and also beyond that, all these reports are placed online where the public can see and review, and it's under SASD. There's a board tab, or there's a tab called Financial Transparency, where all these reports can be found. With that, I'll move to approve the bills and accounts financial statements for December 2025.
A motion from Mr. Dindal. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Mrs. Mizell Flint. Any further board comments or questions? As we talked about earlier this evening, all in favor say aye. Aye. All against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have bid 25-020 McGill Elementary Addition Phase 2.
Thank you for having me tonight. The McGill Elementary Addition Phase 2 was one of the proposed projects in the 2025 bond. With its passage, the district began working on plans and specifications for the 26,574 square foot addition. With the assistance of Park Hill Architects, an RFP was prepared for companies qualified to do this type of construction. Bids were received from 5 companies qualified to perform this work. References were checked and subcontractor lists were reviewed. The scoring criteria was applied, and Collier Construction not only received the highest score, but also had the lowest price of $12,350,000. At this time, the administration recommends Collier Construction for the construction of McGill Elementary. And I want to thank the guys from Collier are here today. They've been waiting patiently to see this. Thanks for coming, guys.
What was the budgeted amount for this project?
This budgeted amount was, it was 15 million, I believe. A little over 15 million.
And Mr. Henry?
Yes.
The approval is for 12.35, and maybe I'm seeing 12.65 on the proposal that was scored.
I would have to double check that.
Can you get that to us in the next little while?
Absolutely.
How about we table that for a minute?
Good deal.
All right, we're gonna keep moving. I'll come back to that one. The next is bid 20-024, Rio Vista abatement and demo.
With the movement of Head Start out of Rio Vista and our declining enrollment, it has left the old Rio Vista campus vacant and no longer needed. With the assistance of King's Consultants, specifications and drawings were produced to abate and demo the entire Rio Vista campus. Bids were received from 7 companies capable to perform this type of work. These were reviewed and scored, and First Priority Environmental Services, LLC, and AMX Environmental received the highest scores. The administration recommends approval for AMX Environmental Ltd. To demo the building and First Priority Environmental Services for the abatement of Rio Vista. The total cost for demo and abatement is $289,500, which includes a $40,000 contingency. Do you all have any questions over that?
Never mind. You won't have the answer for us until we decide on this.
What's the timeline, do you know? 30 days. Yeah, okay.
I have a suggestion to bring to the board's attention. While you all know I don't like to tear down buildings and history and all that, there is a building adjacent to the Boys and Girls Club that I'd like to maybe look into possibly saving that for the Boys and Girls Club. I think it could be something valuable to them, maybe storage or whatever they want to use that for, but I think it's a nice little space along with the playground and the little pavilion that's nearby. If we can look into something like that, maybe the Boys and Girls Club would really like that.
That's a good suggestion. We're actually coordinating with the Boys and Girls Club and the city because they've got a park in that area. So any decisions made will be in full coordination with them.
Any other comments or questions? That's good. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve for AMX Environmental Ltd. To demo the building and One Priority Environmental Services for the abatement at Rio Vista Elementary. Total costs for all demo and all abatement is $289,700, which includes a $40,000 contingency.
Motion from Dr. Mills, I'll second. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Raise your hand, sorry. All against say the same. Motion passes 6-1. All right, Dr. Gomez, non-business days, or Dr. Brandon, or no, sorry.
Dr. Keeman, Dr. Moran, and members of the board. This is pretty straightforward, but it's always important that we know the why. During the 88th regular session of the Texas legislature, important provisions were made to House Bill 3033, which impacts governmental responses to public information requests, including the definition of a business day. So this was effective September 1, 2023, so we've done it a couple of years since then. This defined a business day as a day other than a Saturday or a Sunday, a national holiday, or a state holiday. Additionally, a governmental body may identify no more than 10 days each calendar year that their governmental body's administrative offices are closed or operating with minimum staff as non-business days. These days do not count when counting response deadlines. So just for clarity, when we pass these, remember it doesn't align with the school calendar, it aligns with the actual calendar year. And so with the board passing the calendar year for next school year, we need to define these PIA days for the 2026 calendar year. You received a copy in your Friday facts. It's really hard for me to display this on the screen, so I put a copy at each one of your seats as well. And you can see the proposed dates in blue that have been designated as non-business days. Then you see the state and federal holiday and the regular weekends. So it's the administration recommendation that the PIA non-business days are approved as presented. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. And then, if approved, these will go up on our website and they will be posted outside the communications office. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Gomez? Do I have a motion?
I move that the PIA non-business days are approved as presented.
I have a motion from Mrs. Mizell Flint. Do I have a second? I have a second from Mr. Gallegos. Any further board questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. All right, Dr. LeMaster, I think, is actually doing this. And this item G, it's considered sanction on Educator certificate for abandonment of contract, and that's Perla Garcia.
Dr. Kingman, Dr. Moran, and board members. Tonight I'm bringing forward an item for board consideration regarding 2 educator resignations and potential contract abandonment, and whether the district should submit a written complaint to the State Board of Educator for Educator Certification, or SBEC, for possible sanctions. Board policy provides that educators may resign without penalty at the end of the school year if they submit a written resignation by the required deadline. However, resignation at any other time requires board or designee consent. In these 2 cases, the district did not consent to the resignations, and after review, administration is recommending the board make a finding that good cause did not exist and authorize the submission of a written complaint to SBEC. It is important to note that SBEC makes the final determination and may consider mitigating factors as part of the review. At this time, I respectfully request a motion to approve administration's recommendation to submit written complaints to SBEC regarding these 2 educators.
And I'm going to take those motions separately since they're separate items. So let's start with Ms. Perla Garcia. Do I have a motion?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
unlike most positions, there's no 2 weeks notice is for a teacher. So
because
like,
they're contractual.
gotcha, okay. So it's sort of like, because we're depending on their presence for the classroom that we can't replace within 2 weeks.
That's right.
Oh,
And if I can make a comment for the board's sake, we really work hard to use common sense and work with employees. If they've got a life-changing, and there's a list that TEA has given us, if they have a life-changing event or there's a health issue or a change in family status or perhaps a spouse is moving and they have to move, we are gracious and we work with employees. But when we bring you one, it's because they left us high and dry and did not work with us at all. We're absolutely willing to work with employees if they've got something valid In these two cases, they just quit. And they quit on their kids. And it's a shame because those kids came back and didn't have a teacher.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So I read the emails from these two employees, and I don't know how much I can say, but when you say they just quit, there's an interview process. Are we talking to them? Are we trying to dig deeper than just maybe what they're telling us?
Yes, ma'am. So we have a process that we go through that includes not only written communication, but in-person communication with each employee. And like Dr. Moran said, we do try to work with them and consider mitigating factors or personal factors because each of these employees is a person and has a family and a life, and we want to be very considerate of that. But it's also important to note that all the board is voting on today is whether or not we send the information to SBEC, and then SBEC makes the final determination.
Yeah, I take that into consideration also, that they have a family that they're trying to provide for, and who knows what the real issues are. One of the employees, I think, was with the district for many, many years, if I'm not mistaken.
In my interviews with both employees, I explained the entire process and potential
Tried to make something work.
ramifications. Yes, and they understood what the conversation would be tonight.
Yeah.
And I'll say, as a teacher that has signed a contract before, when you sign your contract, it is very detailed and explained very deeply that it's a year contract, that you're committing to a year. And I mean, you're committing to children for a year. And it's like, I agree with you, if there's something that, and Dr. Moran said, it's life, yes. But if you can't provide that, it's, I mean, you know that from the beginning, that it's a year contract.
Other questions or comments? So do I have a motion regarding Mrs. Garcia?
I make a motion to consider the sanction of Educator certificate for abandonment of the contract for Perla Garcia.
Yeah, sorry. I think I have to say the name out loud. So I have a motion from Mrs. Duncan. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Mr. Gallegos. Any further board comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All against, say the same. Motion passes 7-0. We next have consider sanctions of Educator certificate for abandonment of contract, Ida P. Luce. Do I have a motion on that one?
I'll make a motion to that good cause did not exist for Miss, is it, how do you say, Panel Luce, to abandon her employment contract and authorize the superintendent to submit a written request to the TEA to sanction Educator certificate for abandonment of contract.
A motion from Dr. Mills. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Gallegos. Any other board comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All against, say the same. Motion passes 7-0. We're going to go, thank you, Dr. Master. We're going to go back to item D, bid 25-020.
My apologies. I had a discrepancy on my presentation. The total cost for the 26,574 square feet is $12,650,000. The budgeted price for that from the bond committee was $15,830,000.
Get that page back. All right. So do I have a motion regarding Phase 2 of McGill Elementary?
I'll make a motion for contracting with Collier Construction for Phase 2 at McGill Elementary School. Total cost for the addition is $12,650,000.
I'll second.
Motion from Dr. Mills and a second from Mr. Dindle. Any further board comments or questions?
There's some community concern about this particular bid. Maybe it's a total lie, maybe not, but I have to ask. Does this bid include removing or demolishing the current playground that's there in order to complete this project?
At McGill?
At McGill.
Yes, we're going to replace the playground. Matter of fact, they're going to tear it down, and they're going to put 2 more new ones there and then a new one across the street at the Tiny Texans.
So the new playground will be removed?
No, the old one will be
Oh,
removed.
the old one.
in the
Okay,
back.
I'm asking about the new one.
Oh, no, the new one will stay.
No, totally out of the way.
Absolutely.
Good question. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. All against say the same. Motion passes 7-0. All right, we're going to go into closed session under Texas Education Code 551.074, which is personnel matters, and then we will be back. All right, we are back from executive session. We took no votes. All right, before we move forward with our last item, there were several votes that I recorded as 7-0 after the, which included consent items A through E, approval of the audit report, which is action item A, bills, accounts, and financial statements, which was action item C, was McGill, Ms. Cardenas, did you vote on the McGill addition?
Yes.
Okay, so the Public Information Act, item F, did you vote on that one? Did you vote on that one? That was right before the certificate for abandonment. Okay, so just the other ones I listed, we're going to list Mrs. Cardenas as abstaining and that they were 6-0, not 7-0. My apologies. So now we have consider mid-year superintendent evaluation, and I'll make a motion that we approve the mid-year superintendent evaluation as discussed. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have any further board comments or questions? Everyone will just make sure they raise their hand until I look at them. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Announcements. Our Team of 8 training will be February 5th, 2026. Our Finance and Pre-Agenda Workshop will be February 9th, and our regular school board meeting will actually be February 16th, not February 23rd. That's a Monday. Yeah, 16th. All right, and with that, we're adjourned.